will be the end of the road of 8 of the 16 players. Now, with Magnus Carlsen's performance on day 3, he has ensured that he qualifies and makes it to the quarterfinals. But of course, there is a side story going on. Well, I don't even know if this is the side story anymore or the main one, because depending on how the players finish, we might be headed for a Magnus versus Hans matchup in the knockout stages. Now, on day 1 of our pre-show, when the tournament started, we had Grandmaster Alejandro Ramirez joining us with his insights on a controversy that many were expecting would die down once Magnus and Hans faced each other. But the way things unfolded and played out, none of that was to happen. And to take this conversation forward today, we've got a very special guest joining us. He is the very dynamic Director General of FIDE, Grandmaster Emil Sutovsky. Let's bring him on. Hello and welcome, Emil.
Hi, Tania.
Emil, it's such a pleasure to have you with us here. And I want to start by asking you that the last month has been a month of turmoil in the chess world. From your personal perspective, how do you view this situation?
Well, chess made it into the news, but I'm sure we could have done it in a better way. I mean, all this situation is rather damaging for chess, I must say. It's not a sort of popularity we have been aiming to reach. And we obviously are concerned at FIDE about the recent developments. And let's say we have to put things straight. We have to review it closely, and that's what we do. We have to talk to people and entities which are engaged, and that's what we do. And to take some decisions, and that would not be simple because the situation is very unpleasant for many involved.
Yes, and Emil, to understand better how this works, I want to ask you that when there is such a cheating allegation, at what point does FIDE get involved?
Well, the point is that there was no cheating allegations. That's a problem. Because technically, if Magnus was to quit the tournament, to quit the game, and let's say submit protests claiming that he is playing against Hans, who is, in his opinion, is a cheater, it's one thing. That's a policy which is how things are on. Here the situation is different. From what we learn, it looks like Magnus is protesting about the fact that Hans was cheating, and more than once in previous occasions, not necessarily on the occasion he was playing him recently. And that makes whole things problematic because at the moment that you are making unspoken insinuations, I would say allegations, that makes situation a bit uneven because you are sort of not saying it, so you are like not liable, but in fact you are creating a problem. Now it has to be said that Magnus is acting out of principle. It's not like some sort of capricious decision or something. I can relate to that. But at the same time, I'm sure he understands himself that the whole situation is rather damaging. It is damaging not only to Hans' reputation, which maybe Magnus wouldn't care as much, but it's damaging to the chess world. It's damaging to Magnus' colleagues who are playing now in the tournament because it impacts tournament situation. So it is sort of mixed feeling because one thing which is important that Magnus, with all his authority, is like gearing up towards the fight against what he considers be cheating. Now, let's say, was it in recent past? We don't know because Magnus never spoke out about that. But still, but from another point of view, we as FIDE simply cannot allow anyone to be vigilante, if you wish. I mean, to decide who is guilty and to start taking these actions, because otherwise, I mean, if things proceed like that, the whole system would be ruined. I mean, many competitions could be ruined this way, and that what should not happen. I think Magnus realizes it himself, and I can tell that we are in talks with nearly all leading players, including Magnus. And the problem is evident, and the problem was ever evident. I recall back in 2019, the pandemic hasn't started yet and the whole online boom hasn't started yet. But I initiated the forum panel, which worked for a few weeks, which included all the major chess platforms and included main experts in online cheating. And we tried as FIDE to gather some sort of panel which would work and review all these cases and find solutions. Unfortunately, by that time, private platforms were not too supportive of the idea. They were rather competitive between themselves, and the competition was rather fierce. So they were not really ready to, let's say, to share some data, to show what the algorithms are, and so on. And that sort of slowed down the process. Now, Magnus' actions, although we cannot support them once again, they led to the positive change, and we hear already about the readiness of the major platforms to work, to have FIDE leading this process, to actually serve as would you say judge or something? I mean, the panel which would engage both representatives of the platforms and, of course, FIDE experts and Ken Regan as well, and grandmasters, because I think the main problem, we understand it all. When we talk about a strong player who allegedly cheats occasionally, it's very difficult for any algorithm, and Ken Regan himself acknowledged that, to determine it with any degree of certainty. So it's very important that it's massive effort from all sides. And here I have to say that Magnus' actions did lead already to some positive change. But once again, there is no way that any player can, just proceed the way he pleases. And I think it was not. I think Magnus feels himself that something is not right. That's why he doesn't speak out. But maybe he didn't find, under the pressure of competition, didn't find the smarter way to do that. I'm not sure what would have been. Also, the question remains, what exactly is the protest about? Because unless Magnus speaks out about it, it's very difficult to understand. Does he allege that Hans continues to cheat? Does he allege that Hans has been cheating throughout? Does he protest for the fact that he at least twice have been cheating? But we know, and unfortunately, many players online have been cheating, and some of them are with higher ratings than Hans. So it's a problem. We have to deal with that, and we knew we have to deal with that. Till this crisis, we didn't have much of a support from major online players. Now we see this sort of understanding and readiness to work together on that.
And one of the very big reasons for that is just simply how much online chess has grown, and it's become this big core part of the chess world. So if cheating is a problem, then there needs to be some regularization of it, some anti-cheating commission, as we have in OTB events, need to come in. So it is high time for online platforms to look at it much more seriously.
Indeed, and we called for this action once again 3 years back already. The point being, I would say, why the crisis is has grown up so significantly. If you remember, the whole online thing, and it is actually in a way, started as something like fun for many, and a bit of practice and fun for top players. Even 10 years ago, even 5 years ago, you didn't have significant prizes. You didn't have these tours. You didn't have this coverage with hundreds of thousands of people watching them. Nothing. So because of that, for many players throughout the years, cheating online was not equal to cheating over the board. They would know that, okay, on the board, of course, you're playing chess, you're a chess player, and here you come for fun, so okay, here and there, you can be doing these things. Now, then the transformation happened. And for many players, actually, it remains still that cheating online is not as seen as cheating OTB. And that's a problem. And here where the problem lies. It should be very clearly conveyed that cheating is cheating. And now, especially when we see that there's so many lucrative tournaments, it's very important that the new generation of players, but also not it should be instilled into players that it is cheating. It is not fun. It is not here I do it once and that's okay. It is not like everybody is doing, so I'm doing it because it's okay and it's considered minor sin. It is cheating, it is sin, it should be punished adequately.
You make a very important point, because this has been the core of many discussions about online cheating. Is that the same as OTB cheating? If Hans has been proven and admitted to online cheating, can that also have insinuations for what happened at the Sinquefield Cup, even though there has been no proof of over-the-board cheating so far? I want to ask you, Emil, that with these allegations of online cheating and admitting to having done that in the past, you say that you cannot differentiate the two and it should not be, it's not okay. If there is no proof and Hans has a clean slate on OTB chess, over the board chess, but this background of having cheated online, how would it stand for him for his over the board tournaments? Would FIDE consider actually inviting Hans Niemann for over the board tournaments, or will his past record with online cheating actually be a deterrent to his over the board career?
I think there should be some sort of status of limitations on that, because I mean, you cannot now in one moment to change a paradigm and to look retrospectively many years back, a few years back. We know it's about Hans only because this situation occurred. Public doesn't know, and chess.com never revealed, for example, this information about many prominent players who at least once were banned for cheating, and probably for a good reason. So I would think that going back a few years back and trying to apply sanctions for someone who cheated in 2018, let's say, would be a bad idea. Then people would find it also unfair. But we need to establish a new paradigm. We shall understand that from now on, or actually already before, we clearly understand that cheating online is as heavy a sin as cheating OTB and should be consequently punished as heavily. Probably also that if you are cheating online, you are subjected to punishment in OTB. The problem is that contrary to OTB, cheating online oftentimes has to be proven with a sort of algorithms and methods which are in a way leave, even the slightest doubt, but still a doubt, unless you put on a camera or something. So there's several degrees. What FIDE has applied so far, we have applied fast track, which is for a tournament when you have a clear, very suspicious case, but probably not as clear to have a capital punishment. So you can be excluded from the tournament, excluded for violating the rules for this event, but not actually being called cheated. But if it reoccurs, then it already you could inflict something much more serious as a ban of OTB. Very complex topic. We spent days and nights, weeks over that, but I think it must be only a collective effort that can work here. And I'm really happy to see that at least now this unpleasant situation, and really it is not nice, it is damaging, at least that brings some sort of a shift, and we see that there is understanding that things have to be tackled together. Top players, platforms, FIDE.
That's been one of the feelings as well, that even though it's a very uncomfortable situation currently, but the big hope is that once the dust settles and things come to light, it will be beneficial for the chess world in the coming time. Now, one of the things that you mentioned, Emil, was that because, yes, Magnus pretty much has insinuated and allegedly that Hans is cheating without as much saying so. He's pointed a finger without pointing a finger. It's pretty clear to everyone. But you mentioned that because he hasn't clearly stated it, it's something that FIDE can't take anyone up on that. What I could make out, and correct me if I understood it wrongly, that FIDE's involvement will be more from the ethics perspective, the code of ethics, which is the kind of, the media attention that the game has got, or the image of chess, which gets into question, the organizers, how they suffer when the world champion withdraws from a tournament in a round robin event in the Sinquefield Cup, which actually in the coming years will be part of the FIDE World Championship. The Grandchester will be part of the FIDE World Championship cycle, or in a competitive prize money event to, in a sense, stand up for what he believes in, the action he chooses is to throw a point, which affects the players, as you mentioned, the tournament, as you mentioned, what fans and spectators expect out of it. So is this more a code of ethics thing right now for FIDE than anti-cheating?
Yes, if you mean Magnus, yes. If you mean his actions, it certainly is more about code of ethics, which is violated here, and there's little doubt about it. Question what was, let's say, behind it, and we understand that behind it there was a lot of substance, at least and a lot of point. But the problem also is that he doesn't say that Hans is cheating. Once again, I think actually we should consider that maybe person should be allowed to claim that someone is cheating, but he doesn't do so. He just alleges. So what happens now? That he is sort of protected against civil lawsuits, let's say, from Hans, because he can say that he never cheated. But yes, as to, let's say, situation in the chess world, it impacts it as badly as if he would be saying so. Even worse, we don't know if he says he's cheating or he has cheated before, and I'm not going to play a person who was caught cheating twice. Let's say we don't know whether for him it's principled that he was cheated more than once. Maybe he believes in, once it was a mistake by a teenager, but the second time already proves that the guy is a real cheater or whatever. Anyways, that's not how things can work. That's definitely not the way to go. And once again, from our conversations, we feel that also Magnus understands it. He has been always doing things his way, but he's a fair person in a way. So I think he feels bad also for his colleagues, because he understands that that's not all right. Anyways, we have to look into that deeply. But of course, this particular case, and actually it's a rare case when Magnus' case is just very small fraction of the bigger situation. So we have to tackle it, and FIDE is reviewing it closely. We have talks inside management board. We have talks with our Fair Play Commission. We will review it at the FIDE Council level. So it's pretty complex, and we are not rushing with a decision. We are talking to all stakeholders and to see what would be the less damaging way to proceed.
So even though the allegations come and the platforms in question are all private online platforms, FIDE has an involvement now in the matter, considering the effect that it has had in the chess world. And as you mentioned, you are in talks, and we had a tweet by Tania today mentioning that the Norwegian vice president from FIDE is following the situation around Carlsen and expecting a statement from FIDE in the coming days. So can we expect an official statement from FIDE regarding the chaos?
Definitely. I think it should come maybe in a few days' time. What's important to understand, and many people do not realize it, players are great, private platforms are awesome, but at the end of the day, if you talk about entity who can, should, and who has the duty to protect it all, it's only FIDE. Because at the end of the day, players care about themselves, and that's normal. Platforms, private platforms, they're caring in mid-term or long-term about their income, about that. That's the FIDE is the only body which is non-for-profit body, which is main primary goal is to develop chess, to protect chess, to help the integrity, to protect the reputation of the game. So that's why there is little wonder that FIDE is the one who should take a stand. As long as it was some internal, let's say, conflicts or accusations, that's the platform's business, that's a tournament and so on. But when it gets to the public, when the entire world discusses, of course it's up to FIDE to stand up and to have a say on that.
The two players who are really involved in the middle of it is Magnus and Hans. Now, well, it's despite Magnus not clearly stating it, it is very clear to the chess world that Hans has been involved in past cheating. And I think at least the popular opinion is that as far as over the board cheating is concerned, nothing has been proven. The chief arbiter gave a statement at the Sinquefield Cup that it was no foul play was involved, and there is nothing against Hans as far as OTB events are concerned. Yet Magnus did, in a sense, throw a point and say that he did not want to play Hans, signaling that he's standing by his decision. However this plays out, whether he gives out a proof or eventually there is something solid, a clear case is made against Hans, I want to understand what are the repercussions with Magnus's decision of how he's gone about it on Magnus by FIDE. Can there be actual actions taken against the world champion? Now, he's someone who's been a great ambassador to the sport. He's somebody who has so much goodwill. His contribution to chess, it's well unmatched in many, many ways. With all of that, but also seeing how things have happened, can he actually face, I don't know what it can be, but suspension or drastic FIDE action against, well, throwing a point in a competitive event?
Well, I'm not in a position here to, to declare what should be FIDE's positions. That's FIDE Council has to meet and discuss and so on. If you ask my personal opinion, I think the strong reprimand would do here, because it also depends what actually your actions come from, whether they come from good faith or bad faith. And here I think, once again, I strongly agree with you that these actions, and not only I agree with you, I brought it myself, are damaging. But then again, you should see the picture as a whole, and what consequences it may have, and so on. So let's say having Magnus being disqualified from OTB tournaments, I think it would be way too strong punishment. But at the same time, just to say, well, kudos to Magnus for signaling us that there is a problem. No, that's not the way to go, because it's obviously damaging. So, but as always in life, it's not like black and white. You have solutions in between. You have ways to convey your position, and clearly also to make this point that FIDE does find this let's say course of action unacceptable, but at the same time maybe not as not to punish as strictly as some have alleged. But once again, the decision, it's not like okay, I'm in my position, I take many important decisions, but it's not the sort of decision I would take myself for.
Of course. And coming to Hans now, if it does come out that there has been multiple accounts of cheating, does that then bring on a clear question of a suspension of a player or a ban of player from both OTB and online? Not going back too much in the past, as you mentioned, what he did when he was 12, but let's say him saying that he only cheated twice, but if a proof was to come out that it wasn't just twice, and it was more than twice, and it was in the recent time, or whatever it is that apparently has made, well, let's say someone like Lev also change and have a shift in his perspective. Magnus throwing a point. If that is solid enough, does this mean that Hans might face a very strong, well, as you say, a very strong reprimand from FIDE for even OTB events?
Okay, if we talk about the serial cheating, it's of course more than strong reprimand. It's much stronger action. But for the I suspect that we would need to gather sort of proofs, or at least very strong conviction about something massive and repeated, not only based on the, let's say, assumed violations since 2016 and 19, if I remember right. But if it is beyond that, very possible, yes. But that's would pass through FIDE Fair Play commissions and maybe through the ethics and so on. These are two different cases. Once again, I think we should not hurry up with any statements or promising any action before we can review and have all the data. We obviously will be in touch with chess.com. We are already in touch with chess.com to review the data they have. And probably if we can obtain it, we don't have it yet, and review it properly. We can also review data from the OTB tournaments to make our conclusions. But anyways, these are two absolutely different questions. The two absolutely different approaches are required. One is how you tackle a player who was, let's say, convicted cheater and who is suspected to have cheated. And another one is what you do with a player who basically crying wolf, but not only crying wolf, but also taking an action which are damaging and which are overreacting in the situation and damaging both the chess world and his colleagues.
And you also mentioned, and which I think we've been seeing now, chess, of course, has made it to mainstream media, it's center stage, but it's not for the right reasons currently. And of course, the chess world hopes that chess will be in mainstream media for the game that's been played on the board and not the things that happen off the board. I want to ask you that on one side, it's great that there's a conversation going on and people are involved and the world is taking notice of chess, but also it's a double-edged sword because of what they're talking about. What kind of effect does this have in terms of finding sponsors, finding organizers for event, having this, this situation which has its own good, but also based on a very bad foundation?
Well, there are two sides to it. First of all, we can't judge about sponsorships and so on. It's just too fresh, so we don't know. We don't know. Being in news is good, but I do not agree that, I mean, any PR a part of, I don't know, obituary is good. No, not necessarily. So you could say that negative PR, maybe, I mean, some conflicts or accusations could liven up some things, but it cannot be that it's a major thing that keeps on going and recurring, and now the whole chess world associating chess with some cheating scandals. I mean, once again, it can be, I don't know, let's say in football, they all know about these accusations, this guy saying that, okay, Maradona, hand of God or whatever, Neymar is simulating and so on. And these things are going, or you had, I don't know, Armstrong, and people have been alleging that he dopes, and then suddenly he it becomes a story. But once again, you cannot build interest over your sport on this negative, or let's say scandalous news all the time. Okay, once in a while, okay, it can happen. But what we see here is already for 2 weeks now. We had 1 week of the story, then it was somehow half forgotten. Now the new wave, and who knows, maybe tomorrow there will be a new wave. And what happens then? And what continues then? Imagine a situation: we don't find any clear proof for Hans cheating apart of these 2 cases which we know of. He keeps on playing OTB, and he has to play Magnus in the World Rapid Championship, OTB. So we will once again face this situation. And what happens if Magnus tomorrow decides that, okay, he knew about Hans, but he suddenly learns about us, the player he suspects? Maybe even the one who he has played already, but didn't suspect that he has a bad reputation, but he discovered because now he started looking into all it. So it's always, as you said, it's double-edged sword, and we have to be very delicate. But what's most important, we have to to unite all the stakeholders over that, because it's our common enemy, and we have to fight.
It's really nice to hear, Emil, the steps that FIDE is taking and trying to find this direction, especially with online cheating and online chess being such a big part. Now, we were speaking about, well, actions being taken against players. Now, one of the very strong unanimous decision taken by FIDE was against Sergei Karyakin, the 6-month suspension that happened there. I want to ask you, the ban gets lifted today. What's next there? What happens when something like when a player goes through this, the ban gets lifted? What's the future?
Well, usually when the ban is lifted, player resumes or can resume playing. And then it, unless or until there is a new sort of complaint against him. Let's say last time the complaint came from Ukrainian Chess Federation. Let's say if it comes again, and then once again it is reviewed by Ethics Commission, and the new decision is taken, whether it can be a new ban or not. I do not recall any player being suspended twice in a row, but it can happen. Technically, before there is a new claim, at the moment when the period expires, and this was 6 months, so a player can play. That's how it works.
Right. All right, well, Emil, so many questions, but we've got such little time with you. I really appreciate all your valuable insights, and I'm going to close this conversation by asking you one final question. What, according to you, as Director General of FIDE, would be, well, the best case scenario end game for where we are right now with the Magnus Hans controversy?
Well, too early to say, I must say. Too early to say. There are so many things we have to look into before even understanding what's the best case scenario. But the one path which we should proceed is the joint effort, the understanding of major platform and players, I would say the possibility to review questionable cases, and creating of a panel that will be authoritative enough to take decisions and to stand by them. And that could, in a way, open the possibility to everyone to rely on the process. Although, as we know from our practice, always there will be questions, and no decision regarding online chess has ever been, unanimously supported. But that's the only way to go. And I feel that top players, including Magnus, support this vision. And I think we shall at least try it, because if this doesn't work, the competitive online, the sportive side of online would never be on par with OTT.
Thank you so much, Emil, for everything that you've mentioned. And we look forward to seeing FIDE's statement on the matter. And yes, hoping the situation gets resolved, and in the future, better things for chess come out of it. Once again, thank you for your valuable time and joining us.
Thank you, Tania.
Wow, chat. That was Director General Emil Sutovsky. Some big insights there on where FIDE is at right now with everything going on between Magnus and Hans. The drama continues. We have to wait and watch and see how it unfolds. But as Emil mentioned, lots of unanswered questions right now. It's a very open-ended situation, and what it means to the whole chess world, the online chess world, OTB chess world, the players involved, it's to be seen. Peter, you're here with us. How are you doing today?
Yeah, hello, Tania. Actually, I would like to greet also Emil. Yeah, he already left, but the conversation was so interesting and so exciting. I felt like it would just not be right to enter into this discussion. I was very happy to hear everything what Emil had to say. I was following, I was listening. So I think this is a very big step forward.
A very big step forward also with the fact that FIDE as a federation is so open with its approachability to come and talk about these matters in an informal chat, and to really express where they stand at. So I really think that, big credits to FIDE for that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is very important. This is all very important discussions. I mean, also it will help the players deal with the situation. Yeah, this is what, for me as a player, as also a commentator, I feel that it's just so nice if the players will feel that things are moving, there will be a solution, there will be some kind of stability in the situation. That's, I think, everybody's looking forward to.
Absolutely. But Peter, now that the games are off, we've got liftoff. What we are really looking forward to is all the chess action that's coming on and big storylines. Now we know that Magnus and Arjun are safe in their qualification to the knockouts, but that leaves 6 spots still in question. But of course, it comes down to that 7th and 8th place. It's Anish, Giri and Hans who really have to be careful about their qualification and the way they play the 3 games. Peter, we are on the Magnus board right now. He starts his road of the final day against Christopher Yoo. We'll quickly take a look at this opening, but I want to jump to the other boards as soon as possible because they're definitely more important for our qualification spots.
Well, but I felt like, Magnus Carlsen against Christopher Yoo. Christopher is the youngest opponent, and I don't really know did Magnus play against a 15-year-old boy? I mean, we have, I'm not sure when Prague Prague was probably 15 when he joined. No,
but he played Abhimanyu as well, right?
Yes. Okay, yeah. But I mean, in any case, I'm very happy to see Christopher getting a chance to face Magnus. I mean, it should be very interesting also to see how Magnus is approaching this game, and he goes for a very risky and ambitious direction. I mean, let's just see that this is a Nimzo, bishop b4, and Magnus goes for the very risky a3, takes, castles, f3, knight h5, a very original way from black side as well, trying to make sure that white won't be able to pin this knight. This is a very typical idea of the Nimzo, knight h5, threatening queen h4 check. And basically, usually white has different ways. Knight h3 is the most natural one. Then usually black follows it up with f5, leading to some kind of f3 Nimzo. And this is what we are actually having on the board already.
And look at the development. Bishop g5 hitting that queen, and then g4 opening the g file, taking advantage of that square of the knight being on h5, trying to open the g file. Knight h3 is a very sensible idea because very often, Peter, the knight lands on f2 as well. That's why the knight belongs in these structures. So knight h3, I like that move. Also, I want to point out that Magnus Carlsen currently is in pole position in the tournament, and the only game that he's lost so far is the game that he threw against Hans. It's almost as if while he's making his point, he wants to also prove that he truly is the best player in the world, and he's doing it in style.
Yes, okay, but this is also a rapid event. Yeah, usually, I mean, I don't think that people will think about Magnus as the best player in the world just because of this event. I mean, he has proven it already for the last, I don't know, 12, 13 years already. But definitely, I perfectly agree with you that we have been following quite a lot of events. I feel like Magnus takes it very, very seriously.
I think so. I think we've seen Magnus in preliminaries, right? This is a different Magnus from the other events that I've seen. He usually starts slow, takes a lot of chances. Here, this is just business Magnus. He's playing every game to win. We haven't seen any crazy opening ideas, which are a3, a4. Well, we did have b4 against Adiban, but I just still feel that the Magnus that we're seeing in this preliminaries is a man on a mission. He wants to make sure that while he is fighting this cause that he believes in, fighting against online cheating, his game backs it up. And that's what we're seeing here.
Absolutely. I mean, for example, today's game, it might look strange from outside point of view, but this is absolutely in the spirit of the position. In fact, this now transposed to some kind of an f3 Nimzo, because after knight c3, bishop b4, what we are witnessing here is something very similar to f3, short castle, which black is not really playing. I mean, usually the classical reaction is d5, or the very fashionable reaction is c5 right now. So in fact, this game transposed to f3 castles when the best move for white is a3. And after bishop takes c3, b takes c3, the line with knight h5 does exist. I mean, I remember analyzing it like 15 years ago, but I never felt like it. I mean, I knew that it's a serious system, but I still did not think that it's enough for equality. Well, what I'm saying is that this is a very serious theoretical discussion here.
Very serious theoretical discussion. And after g4, knight f6, the pawns have been traded off. The g file captured by Magnus. Rook g1 has been played.
Yes, this is the current position.
This is the current position, and Christopher Yoo goes into a bit of a think. So Magnus putting the pressure on the clock here. D6 played. Peter, we will come back to this game. Let's continue our opening tour and take a look at how Arjun Agassi is doing against Władysław Wojtaszek.
Yes, we're gonna jump right in there. However, I have to make one little point, just very quickly, that Adiban did start with 1b3.
Wow.
Yes, we haven't seen it happen from him in this tournament yet, but he wanted to use the last day of the prelims to use it. And he does it against Boris Gelfand, so it will be also very interesting to keep an eye on this game later. But I agree with you that let's jump now to Arjun because he's in the second position.
All right, so what do we have here? Arjun versus Wojtaszek starts with a Trompowski.
Yeah, it's a Trompowski, bishop g5, d5, e3, c5. Yeah, this is the most traditional way. And after bishop takes f6, g takes f6. Yeah, that's the whole point. D takes c5, e6, knight f3, bishop takes c5. I was always struggling myself to understand that why white is playing this position, because he gives up the bishop. Yes, I understand that he doubled the pawns, but still somehow knowing that black has the dark square bishops bishop on the board, I just don't feel, I can never believe that white can be better in this position, but it's a rapid chess game. So it's very important that you have your direction. You feel like you can play quickly this type of position. That's what really matters. And I think this is probably what Arjun has in mind. So he goes bishop e2, knight c6 castles, f5, c4. Yeah, breaking up this center is essential. And Radek goes d4. Wow, I mean, okay, usually the typical way is just to take on c4 and say, like, you know what, endgame is perfectly fine for me. I don't mind. In fact, white probably won't trade the queens. In any case, Radek played the move d4, and after b4, we get a completely different character of fight. Bishop b4, e d4, short castle, queen b3, and that's the current position.
And that's quite an interesting middle game, because we see this strange pawn structure that black has in front of his king. And it might appear that white should be the one who should be doing well here, because you've got these central pawns. Black's king feels a bit unsafe. The development that black has, not so clear. Feels like easier play for white. Should Arjun be happy about the opening outcome?
Yes, well, that's exactly the reason why I did not like this d5, d4 idea so much. But in order to understand what's happening, we have to show the tactical justification of what Arjun is doing. So after knight takes d4, which would win a pawn because the rook is hanging, leads to complete disaster for black. Because after takes, queen takes b4, queen takes a1, suddenly knight c3 traps the queen.
Wow.
And that will, I mean, after e5, white can of course take queen takes f8, but even just retreat with the queen to a3, it would not change anything. So that's the whole point. And by not being able to take on d4, now the bishop is loose. White is trying to get rook d1 in, and eventually maybe also threaten with some d4, d5. Bishop has not yet developed on c8. I think these are the kind of headaches you don't really want to be faced with in a rapid game from black side.
Definitely. When you don't have enough time to solve big questions and your king is a little weak, it's always a difficult middle games, Peter. We will come back to this and see how it progresses. Let's take a look at Levon versus Praggnanandhaa. Now, Lev has been struggling tremendously in the preliminaries so far. He mentioned in his interview yesterday that he always seems to be playing well in the knockout stages. So if he does make it, we can expect a different Lev. But for that, he needs to score very, very heavy today. Now, starting with the white pieces against Prague. Prague is having a fantastic run in the tournament. What are his chances in this game?
Yeah, well, Levon is also signaling that he means business. He knows that he needs to win this game in order to have any chances. Yeah, basically, if he does not win this, then that's it. And he goes for a very interesting move order. I mean, the position that we have on the board, I think, could happen from different move orders, but this is the one that Levon used. It's not the traditional way, because normally if you already play like this, then d4, d5 is almost exclusively played, and it's white then to make up his mind. Does he take cd5 and plays that structure, or he plays with a3? But Levon had completely different ideas. He goes for b3, gives black the chance to play d5, and after cd5, ed5, bishop b2. He's trying to move order Prague. Yeah, he wants to make another useful move with rook c1 and wait for the right moment to play the move d2, d4. And the point is that it does allow black to play d5, d4. And the big question is, who will profit from all this tactical skirmish that we are witnessing in the next couple of moves? Knight a4, bishop d7, targeting this knight. I mean, basically, believe me that if you know the move bishop d7, it means that you know the variation. It was some, I think like some 6 years ago, it was my novelty. I mean, from the black side. But by now, I guess it's quite common. Rook c1, b6. You just sacrifice this pawn, e4, knight d4, takes, bishop takes d4, bishop e7. So black gives up the pawn, but hopes for very quick development, and also that white's pawn structure is damaged. Let's take a look what happened. And Prague goes for knight d5. Look at this knight on a4. Prague is probably hinting at bishop f6, eventually knight f4 also. Some kind of a Marshallish compensation, because a knight on f4 with this light square bishop and then eventually a queen landing on f6 after the trade of dark square bishops could give very nice counterplay.
I like it. Knight f4. The bishop could also land on d6, trying to put an attack on h2 or trade off the bishop on b2, as you mentioned with bishop f6. Peter, you were talking about this novelty with bishop d7, which was your idea about 6 years ago. I have to say that generally in the chess world, when we're studying an opening, and if there's a line that you've played, regardless of when it was played, the general conversation flows that if Peter played it, it's fine.
Well, the whole point was that there was a game between Anish, Giri and Lenny Dominguez where in 2016 Novi Sad European Club Cup. And there Anish move ordered Dominguez in that game and went on to win. And immediately on that evening, you know, I had to, you know, it was part of my repertoire. I was a professional player. I just wanted to make sure that I'm controlling this idea, this move order that Anish used. And immediately I spotted that there is this kind of hidden idea that black can push d4 and can play this bishop d7, and it's enough compensation. So ever since I have it in my mind, and it's also very nice to see that it was played now.
All right, we will come back and see what ideas Prague follows in this one. Now, you were mentioning Anish Giri. He is up against Vincent, who's currently in joint 4th position. So that's going to be our next game, Peter. I've got the position in front of me. It's a very open middle game. Lots of trades have happened. A lot of pawns are off the board already. Black has an extra pawn, but it's clear that White's activity of pieces and the lead in development should give him enough compensation. The bishop on g2, putting pressure on b7, the strange looking rook on b5, black having not yet finished his development, one feels that it should be enough compensation, but maybe nothing more for white.
Exactly, yeah, this is also my feeling. I feel that this is some kind of a theoretical debate here. They are discussing the Dubov-Tarrasch from a completely different, I mean, not even completely different. This is the most traditional way how actually people get to Dubov-Tarrasch. This move order, d4, knight c6, a3. I think this is some kind of a sideline. It's definitely, usually people play, I think, bishop g2, cd4, knight d4, and then bishop c5. This is originally, officially the Dubov-Tarrasch. So the move a3 tries to sidestep these things. I believe that it probably could be and would be a very clever idea, if not for Anish, yeah, because Anish knows his stuff very well, and he blitzed out everything. Takes bishop c5, bishop e3, bishop b6, bishop g2, castles, rook e8, and it's the typical way that black is having the isolated pawn, but he's trying to compensate with very direct play. And rook e8 is one of the key ideas, targeting the e2 pawn, also eventually eyeing on some exchange sacrifice on e3 as well. So Vincent went for knight a4, provoking and forcing this trade on d4. Everything is traded, and now suddenly black can hit the pawn on e2. Vincent comes back with the knight on c3, double attack on the rook and on the pawn, but Anish probably knows that he can actually take on b2 and you won't be able to punish. Knight takes d5. The rook is hanging, be careful, but rook b5. It's an awkward rook, but a very useful rook. Yeah, puts pressure on the d5 knight, and it protects the b7 pawn. Yeah, this is I think maybe even the reason why black is perfectly okay or should be able to equalize without problems is thanks to this rook on b5.
Interesting. He's gone for rook d1, so just making sure that there's enough defense on the knight on d5. Now there's a big threat of knight takes f6 and the back rank mate problem. So Anish will decide either to trade on d5 or perhaps develop the bishop. But knight d5 looks like the move you want to make, no?
Well, or bishop e6. Yeah, I mean, you highlighted correctly that, yeah, bishop e6, so knight takes d5 followed by bishop e6 is the natural move. And okay, I'm guessing that now white has to take on f6. Yeah, then black takes on f6, and it would be very logical just to take, for example, and then play the move rook b1 and say that, okay, I'm gonna win the pawn back. Okay, it won't give us anything. I mean, basically it's just gonna be a draw no matter what. Yeah, it look, I mean, okay, hang on. Can black try to use the momentum that now thanks to g takes f6 we already created Luft, and white has some problem? I mean, you can't take with the rook, and if you take with the bishop, black is the one who starts to attack the pawn first, yeah?
All right, a lot of trades, even this position after a4, what is really happening is hard to say, or we will, Peter, come back to this and get an update if we reach this end game at all. Right now, bishop e6 or knight d5, we'll see what Anish decides with. Let's continue with our tour and see what the other players are up to in the opening. Now, a big matchup that everyone wants to get an update on is the Hans versus Ivan game. And it's quite a fascinating middle game. Look at that pawn structure. I see our eval bar. It says that black is doing well. And well, at least a strategic way to explain that is the bishop. White doesn't have a bishop to challenge this dark squared bishop, which has this beautiful diagonal, a clear target on b2, on a1, the king. Meanwhile, white's bishop, look at that. His own pawns are stopping its future. So a little uncomfortable for white, for Hans here. But how bad is it really?
Yeah, this is the point. Yeah, that how bad it is. Knowing that if I would have this position from the black side, I would be thinking that, okay, I have to win this because this is a dream position. If I would be white, I would be thinking, okay, it's not good, but I should hold. Yeah, it's just the matter of perspectives. Black is definitely enjoying it a lot. Also very easy to play with the black pieces, which is again very important in rapid chess. Yeah, the good news for white is that he will be able to put some pressure on the f7 pawn, so black has to decide maybe to move the bishop and then put the pawn on f6. But by putting the bishop on e5 and putting the pawn on f6, okay, Ivan first goes h5, opens up the rook. That also makes a lot of sense. He does not want to commit what I wanted to say, that putting bishop e5 and f6 looks like it cements, but how are you going to break? And you are also weakening some squares. I mean, h5 is the more ambitious way.
More ambitious way. He tries to create a weakness on both sides, opening his rook play, maybe a potential h3 weakness, trying to come down with the rook on the h file, plus this bishop on f6. It's a clear strategic advantage for Ivan currently. So Hans has to try to hold this one. Opposite color bishops, but one might feel opposite color bishops usually end in a draw, but not in these kind of structures where one has a clear direct attack on the king. Imagine a queen e5, bishop f6 battery. It can always get very tricky. The h file's been opened up. Peter, we can conclude by saying that after the opening, Hans is in a tiny bit of trouble in this game.
Yeah, definitely. Just one thing before we move on to something else that I want to highlight, that it's the first game in my life that I have ever seen a King's Indian resulting by both sides castling long. I mean, just to highlight this, that it was actually a King's Indian, a classical big King's Indian duel, and both kings ended up castling long. I mean, this is maybe a world record.
Wow.
So very interesting stuff, and we see
Very
that.
rare.
Yeah.
And in the current position, as you're mentioning, a long side castle by both sides in King's Indian. If Peter says he's never seen it before, that's seeing something. The current position, he's chosen to move a3. It also goes on to show that white really doesn't have too many options and moves in this position.
Yeah, well, of course. No, I mean, white simply needs to play h3, put the king on a2 because it's definitely better than on a1. Yeah, it's more safe. We also see Ivan moving this king away with king b8. The big question for me slightly is that now the bishop on f6 is a bit vulnerable. Yeah, it's tied down to the rook and the queen. And if the bishop moves, then we have this problem with the f7 pawn. It's not that we can't sacrifice it, but probably we won't have enough activity to win the game. I mean, we will have enough compensation. So yeah, he goes rook h3 with the idea probably to provoke rook f3 and then maybe trade one pair of rooks to ease the pressure on the bishop. But I do believe that the last couple of moves were more in Hans's favor because this a3 and king a2 were just very useful moves for white.
So nicely handled by Hans, a difficult position. Rook h3 played, and we will see, you're mentioning rook f3 is the way to defend right now against any ideas of a potential sacrifice on either b2 or d3. Peter, we will come back to this. Let's go back to the Magnus board because a lot of developments there and it's getting very tricky for Christopher.
Well, getting tricky for both. I would say, yeah, because Magnus is playing very ambitiously. He has sacrificed the pawn with c5, but we all know that, yeah, sacrificing the pawn, you might get the initiative, but after all, you are pawn done. So you have to prove something. d6, knight c6, king f2, very typical because Magnus wants to go easily, open up the bishop. knight h5, trying to trade this knight, and Magnus goes c5. Immediately he's using the momentum, c5, dc5, e3, positional pawn sacrifice, king h8, bishop c4, h6 on the board. And we see that the computer actually believes that black is perfectly fine. I don't know, humanly speaking, I would think that it's just a nice compensation for white, but yeah, it's very big mess.
Really big mess. I mean, when we first switched to this position, you know, one gets the feeling this bishop on c4, beautifully placed, white's rook on g1, open file. But then you see also the concrete aspects of the position. The bishop on g5 is attacked, the king on f2 a little exposed. You can't go bishop h4 right now because knight takes f4, e takes f4, and perhaps just a move like queen h5 comes in and your structure is destroyed. You can never do that. Then the only move that white actually has here is to take on h5, because I don't believe bishop takes h6 works. But can we just take a look at that?
Yeah,
one?
I mean, we have to take a look at it because it's a very principled move. Bishop takes h6, forcing g takes h6, followed by knight g6 check, king h7. And now, for example, we take on f8, queen takes f8, and then how do we evaluate this?
Actually,
I feel that black should be fine because we don't have enough pieces, no?
Go on, Peter. Go on, Peter.
I mean, yeah, that we don't have enough pieces to attack. And as you said, the king on f2 is also slightly exposed. I mean, if with the king on h1, we could have the argument that some rook a2, rook g2 would be very fast. But with the king on f2, I don't feel that this could be happening.
Wow, so actually quite a big decision here. Will Magnus go for this sacrifice and claim that he feels he has enough practical chances there? Because if not, bishop h4 just looks bad for white. Knight h5 is the only other move that I see.
Yes, for example, takes, and then bishop f4 back. That was the very first thing I was also trying to make sense to it, that how to evaluate, because after all, the c7 pawn is kind of hanging. It's not only about the pawn, but also white has some ideas like d4, d5, kicking away this knight, and then white will have access to the e5 square. So I think it's more like maybe a move pair move position. The question is, can black play, for example, a very aggressive g5, bishop takes c7, and eventually f5, f4, threatening queen takes h2 check, opening up the way for the bishop to be developed quickly. I mean, it's such a complex position. Magnus needs to be very alert.
Wow. So actually, Christopher putting big trouble to Magnus with the black pieces. That's he's been amazing this whole tournament, you know, Peter. He's had some really big wins. He might not be in the race. Can we just get our standings up actually right now and see where Christopher is placed? He is currently on 9th position. So actually, he's got a shot at making it to the top 8. He's got a very big shot.
Exactly. I mean, okay, he had 15 points, I think, or something like this, I recall, and he's very dangerous. I mean,
you actually mentioned a couple of days ago that when it comes down to seconds, Christopher might be one of the absolute best players in the world when a player has to play on seconds.
Exactly. I mean, I have witnessed him a couple of times. As I said, I'm following him ever since this Isle of Man conversation that he had with his dad about the Berlin defense. I mean, that was just fantastic. I mean, basically like a doctorate at the age of 11 about the Berlin, all the ideas that what happens if you go with the king to c8, what happens if you go to king to e8, what are the ideas, what you have to pay attention to. It was very impressive, and it's so nice to see him developing nicely.
Was that just an over-the-board analysis that Christopher was having with his dad?
No. There was no chessboard involved. It was breakfast. I mean, his dad, I'm not sure if his dad is a chess player or not, was just reading a newspaper and was trying to enjoy his breakfast. But I mean, Christopher loves chess so much, and he felt the need to share all this information with his dad. And I was sitting the next table, and I was the one basically who got a free lesson.
Wow, that's such an amazing story. And he was all of 11.
Yes, exactly.
That's when you know that someone's a prodigy, and he's showing it right now. I mean, some incredible chess in this event. It's his debut at the Champions Chess Tour. He is currently in 9th position. He's defeated Anish in the event. I think Jan-Krzysztof, Duda. Currently, Magnus on the ropes against Christopher. We'll keep an eye out on this one. A very bright future ahead of him. And Peter, we've got Lev against Prague in front of us. Wow, a lot of developments here. Black has a piece for 3 pawns. But look at those 3 pawns. they are they dangerous?
Yes, they are dangerous. I mean, Prague definitely in a very dangerous spot. Levon is putting the pressure, absolutely putting the pressure. The king on g8 with the pawn on f6 is a terrible construction, yeah, because with bishop d5 check, white will have a very big tempo, forcing the king into the corner. And now also we see that Levon starting to march with the a pawn. The only problem why I don't want to get involved in this game that we have to get back to Magnus against Christopher, because exactly that line that I mentioned is on the board, fire on board. Black has just played f5, f4, and it's anybody's game now.
All right, let's take a look, because this is such a concrete position. One can't talk about strategic factors. F4 has been played, E3 under fire. Queen H2 is a big threat with the bishop on C7 cut off. Well, the first thing that white needs to take care of is queen takes H2. But FE3 is coming in as well. What are the options that white has here?
Well, the reason why I stopped here before, because I wasn't sure. I mean, the position is so crazy. You have to be ultra focused. I mean, you simply don't know that Isna, for example, something like, but also queen h4 check, not just queen takes h2, but queen h4 check is a big threat as well. I mean, that's why I wanted to jump right here back, because I want really to see how Magnus reacts, how he deals with this. Looks scary.
Down to 4 minutes. No, they don't even have that much time on the clock. So he takes a4,
Yeah.
f4. That is a brave decision, allowing queen h2 check, allowing c takes d4, allowing queen h4 check. Peter, I don't know which one to start with. Let's take a look at queen h2 here.
Well, I think actually that this is the best. I mean, I haven't seen any other move than ef4, because as you said, yeah, f takes e3 was a very big threat. So queen takes h2 check played. I'm guessing now it's easy to say that white has to play rook g2. Probably black.
Queen h4.
Yes, on the board. So we go king g1.
Okay, let's get our bishop h3.
Yeah,
and that's the move that
comes.
Tad is suggesting. Bishop h3 is the correct move.
Yeah, bishop h3. And now the big question is that how do we deal with this? That do we have, we can't really move the rook. Yeah, we just can't move the rook. So it's basically probably everything comes down to the move that Ted is mentioning, that d4, d5 is the move. And then black has to play something like rook a8 in the true martial spirit. I mean, just bring all the pieces and you never know what's going on.
This is a crazy position. I mean, this is the kind of position which for human play is so difficult. We've got Tad telling us the best computer moves in this line, but after bishop h3, playing d5, ignoring the rook, and then I think he continues with the line, but it's completely crazy. d5, rook e8. Who's going to play like that with the knight on c6 hanging? He goes rook h2.
Well, I mean, first Magnus has to play the move d4, d5. I'm not sure if it's a given.
He did not. He played rook h2. So that just goes on to show how difficult this line is to go for d5.
Yeah, but I mean, okay, rook h2 is also kind of a possibility. d4, d5 was a typical computer move. I mean, okay, if somebody does it to you over the board, I mean, then you are like, okay, if he spends half an hour, then it's perfectly fine. If he spends 30 seconds, you think like, oh my God, yeah, how can I fight against this guy? Magnus takes the human approach. Yeah, I mean, he just wants to hide his king. He makes good use of this rook h2 move, creating the square h1 square for his king. And basically the point is that black has to prove in the next couple of moves something, because if white opens up the position, then black's king on h8 without the dark square bishop. And let's not forget, yeah, that white has two razor sharp bishops. It's up to black to prove now some brilliancy.
All right, rook h2, king h1 played. Now a bishop f1 is a big threat, or bishop e6. The main idea is to pin this bishop on h3. So it's something that black has to try to counter, right? And how do you do it? Do you go queen g3, or is queen g3?
Good question. Yeah, I mean, queen g3 looks very tempting, very natural. Yeah, just to unpin. Let's take a look. Queen g3. Okay, what is happening? I mean, you want to go some rook g8. If I push d5, then you have rook g8 with counterplay.
I'm hoping, because bishop g2 is a massive threat once I get rook g8.
Wow, but Christopher plays rook a8. Computer does not like it.
But I thought this would allow something like bishop e6 might be stronger than bishop f1 right now. So bishop e6?
But okay, then if I eliminate the dark square bishop, I'm not that worried, to be honest. Okay,
So how do we evaluate rook h3 here?
You take, I'm gonna go queen f6. And I'm stabilizing. Okay, you have good compensation, of course, but I feel like this is fine. Instead, Magnus goes bishop d6. He wants to keep his dark square bishop, and probably he's gonna take d takes c5, maybe cementing his bishop on d6.
Things are out of control. Christopher Yoo down to 2.5 minutes. Magnus 4.5 minutes on the clock in a highly complicated position. And we see our eval bar. It says that Magnus, after rook c8, stands clearly better.
Yes, that's also another human factor. Yeah, that it looks like just d takes c5, and why isn't white simply better? It's not yet played. It's only I'm speculating about it. On the other hand, I also understand why Magnus is not yet taking on c5, because he really would like to kick this knight from c6. Yeah, and once we take dc5, the knight will stay forever on c6, unless we, of course, target it with the bishop and then we eliminate it like this. So a big decision. Yeah, Magnus finally takes dc5. Correct.
All right, Peter, let's jump over for a moment to Hans's game, because it's gone into a rook pawn ending where black has an extra pawn. And of course, we're not going to look at lines here, but just as an evaluation, this does look very bad for Hans. After a move like rook c1, he's gone for a4. Rook c1 attacking c7 can always be countered with rook d7. So there really isn't much for black to worry about. Meanwhile, d5 is a weakness, g4 is a weakness. But again, the question is this trivial for Ivan to convert to a win, or, as rook pawn endings are famous, still drawing chances?
Yeah, I think that definitely still drawing chances. I mean, the rook on d6 is a bit passive. Yeah, as you said, rook d7 will be a nice defense. In fact, maybe, I mean, hang on. So if we play something like rook f4, yeah, rook f4, rook c1, I'm assuming rook c1 is the idea, hitting on c7, rook d7, and then can white play a move like d6? No, he can't. Okay, very important.
You go rook e4 and you
exactly.
win the pawn.
Exactly. This is very important. So white doesn't have any threat, and by knowing that the opponent doesn't have a threat, that's good news for us as players with the black pieces. Then okay, why not just to go rook f4? Eventually also threatening rook d7, or is there some problem that is there something to worry about? For example, that a king d8. Exactly. I wanted to show that something like rook f4. Okay, white plays something like king b3 just to illustrate. Rook d7, rook e8 check, king b7, and then suddenly rook h1. Rook takes d5, rook h8, and suddenly white gets counterplay. Yeah, that's the only thing black has to pay attention to.
Peter, you know, right now I'm looking at our camera, and it's just really, I mean, I have to say this and address this, that it's a bit disturbing, everything that's going on. I mean, just to think how difficult it must be for Hans to play in this situation. It's you know, it's a very tough situation. And of course, we still don't know what is the truth and what has really happened. But in the time and the age that we live in with social media and how quick people can be to pass verdicts and judgment, and to think about it, right? Let's for a moment just think that, let's give Hans the benefit of the doubt for at least what happened at the Sinkfield Cup. Okay, say that there was no foul play there, which for now is not even about the benefit of the doubt. There's no proof about it that there was any foul play. He's been given a clean chit. The day that is the biggest day of your life in your chess career, right? You beat Magnus Carlsen, the world champion. And that achieving that turns out to be literally the biggest nightmare. No matter what happens from now on, it's almost as if you have to explain things for the rest of your life.
Yeah, I get your point, but I don't know what to say. Yeah, so
it's a really tough situation for Hans, you know, and I don't know what's going to come out of it. Maybe none of us do, but because sometimes I see chat, and when I see social media as well, I really want all of you to really think about this as well, you know, before we pass judgments on just what effect it has on someone.
Yeah, but exactly that's why I was so happy to hear what Emil was saying. Yeah, that FIDE is very carefully examining all the situation, and that's the body that has to do it. So I think this is great news, because otherwise everything else is just speculation, and I don't want to speculate.
Exactly. And the thing is that, Peter, you say you don't want to speculate, but you know, again, you know how social media works. You keep saying you're not on Twitter, but you know exactly what's going on everywhere. So it's really something that he's still being able to play. Also, what Emil mentioned, that, you know, Magnus is fully aware of, and he feels for it. Magnus feels for it. He realizes the weight of the situation on not just him, but on Hans as well.
Yeah, well, we haven't heard anything from Magnus yet. Yeah, that's why it's so difficult also to say anything, because, okay, if we would know exactly, as Emil also mentioned, yeah, that what Magnus exactly means, or why he's doing what he's doing, then it would be easier. But right now we are only guessing.
Right.
But okay, let's focus on chess, because there is so much action, so much drama everywhere. For example, Levon, we know that he needs to bounce back. But I do feel like the last couple of moves had been working for Prague. I mean, yes, he's down to 28 seconds, but still, at least the pawns are not connected, though very dangerous. I mean, okay, how do you stop all these pawns? A6 played?
Not sure. And these pawns are really marching down the board. I mean, okay, so bishop b7 is stopped. Don't rush with a7 would be my feeling first, Peter, because bishop f2, of course, is a threat. Also, always watch out for bishop b7, even if f2 was not threatened. Lev needs to take this slow, but let's look at the most direct line. What happens if white actually plays f4 here? I want to provoke you to take g takes f4. And then I'm just wondering, can I go a7 and queen my pawn? Or
Well,
is that
f4 is on the board?
on the board, so it might be an idea.
Yeah, f4 played, and okay, basically it's not only very important for Levon to win, but actually if Prague loses, then also for him the situation will still be very messy. I mean, all the guys are coming from the bottom and putting pressure. Yeah, as we know, this is Judgment Day. Nobody is safe. I mean, okay, probably Magnus and Derigaishi, they are already perfectly safe, but anyone who is below 20 points, and then you lose a game and you get nervous, who knows what will happen. Very important game. GFE7 on the board.
And the point is, at first, I got the feeling that bishop b7 holds the fort, but then I think rook d8 would just... Is rook d8 the move?
Well, or even maybe we can even give an argument to give a check first, yeah, because then the king has to move, and then next move is rook d8.
Nice. And the point, Peter, is that in that case, once the king is out of there, the rook on f8 is undefended. So actually that forces black to lose a tempo. So a really important check you're pointing out.
Yeah, and bishop b7 on the board, and I'm believing that Levon will probably give this check on d7. It does look like a winning move to me. And also the evaluation bar screams that white is winning, white is crushing.
And even though Prague is super high on the leaderboard, he needs to make sure that the day doesn't go drastically wrong for him. He does have margin for error. He does have buffer space for a game going wrong, but he needs to be careful. Levon, meanwhile, if he does win this, if he does convert this, it would be exactly the start he needs for any hope to make it to the qualifiers, to the knockouts.
Exactly. Absolutely. I mean, that will also give him a lot of energy. Wow, actually, Levon did not give the check. Slightly surprising. Yeah, so anyway, takes, and he gonna push and he gonna queen. I mean, yeah, bishop c5 check, but okay, king f1. That's
and the point is that whenever you capture the rook, you first queen either one pawn, whichever you like, and then the bishop has to get deflected and the other queens. And that's it. Prague resigns. There's nothing to be done.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, probably Prague got Levon at the wrong moment. Yeah, I mean, Levon is very determined, because he already mentioned, yeah, that if he will be able to qualify, then he will finally start to play as he can. And we all know what that means. Yeah, if Levon is back to being Levon.
Well, but you know, we all want to see a Levon as at Levon's best, because the chess world is a better place when we see Levon with his creativity and the fighting spirit and the kind of chess that he's known for. Peter, you're smiling.
Yes, I'm smiling because we want to see, but I'm not sure if the other participants agree with this. Yeah, I mean, let Levon be a shaky Levon for the moment. Yeah, I think that's what.
Especially
Yes.
his opponents, especially the three players that he's playing today, they would be happy to see a shaky Levon. But Prague faced, well, what we saw Levon in his element. And Peter, what is the update on the Magnus board?
Yeah, it seems like Magnus in total control. I mean, this is now a quiet endgame where you can really enjoy the power of the two bishops, and not only the power of the two bishops, but also Black has only 3 pawns and all of them are weaknesses. The two bishops are dominating the board. Black's knight doesn't have a good square. I mean, it feels like this is technically winning. Also, clockwise, Magnus is doing great. I can't imagine any miracle. Bishop f5, yeah, at least stopping rook d7 check. But okay, now even some bishop c4 move, hitting the rook, and then also eventually maybe white can even try to go after some checkmating ideas, but maybe it's even no need for that.
So bishop f5 played against rook d7 and Magnus thinking. So what are you were mentioning bishop c4 here.
Yes, bishop c4 is very tempting. I mean, to kick the rook away from g8 because the rook on g8 looks like a good piece. But I simply believe that every single move wins in this position, which does not blunder any material. Yeah, Magnus goes bishop c4.
Bishop c4, as you suggested, played. Well, he has to keep the rook on the 8th rank. So a rook e8.
Yeah, rook e8 would be logical in order to also control the e5 square, yeah, because that's a problem. And now the big question is, does Magnus wants to take this h-pawn, yeah, with rook h6 and then eventually rook takes h5, or does he want something else? No, rook h8 played. Okay,
wow.
So Christopher is trying to hang on to his h5 pawn. Of course, it's understandable, but it's very passive.
But you know, Peter, this is such an easy move to miss because the options in the head were rook f8, rook e8, but rook h8 at least defends the pawn. And bishop g5, the only square for the knight. Knight comes to b7, hitting that rook. White can play rook a6 now, attacking that pawn on a7 and forcing Black to take a decision of, are you going to defend it with another ugly move like rook a8? Might run into bishop d5.
Yeah, no, I mean, this position is almost resignable. I mean, it just shows that, yeah, Magnus goes rook f6. Okay, wants to kick the bishop from f5.
Rook
also
f7.
makes perfect sense. And also rook f7 is a double threat. So probably bishop g6 has to be played. But okay, I mean, no, this is horrible.
Rook f6 played. How are you going to bishop g6? Feels like the only move. Bishop c8. So defending it from the other side.
Well, it's also like a fairy tale that this is not checkmate. I mean, two bishops and the rook, active rook, are hunting Black's king. But okay, Magnus is under no pressure whatsoever. Can just very nicely combine all the ideas.
And there are so many tempting options here. Bishop d3 check, rook c6, idea of going rook c7. There's rook a6 attacking the a7 pawn, rook at 6 check, as you're pointing out, and then rook c6 just with bishop f6 coming in next.
Yeah, I mean, everything. The only problem for Magnus is that, yeah, really, I think in this moment, you can easily ask the public, okay, please choose a square for my rook. Yeah, just don't blunder it, because anything is great. And Magnus just doesn't want any of it. He plays f4 and says, please make a move.
We must have at least suggested 7 different options, and f4 was not one of them.
Yeah, Christopher down to 2 seconds. Yeah, he plays king g7 with 2 seconds on the clock. And now, okay, Magnus just pushes the f. He wants to create a mating idea like this.
So he wants to go rook f7 next, and the king doesn't have any squares. He's taken away the g6 square next.
Wow, Christopher played with no time on the clock. Look at this. He jumped back to 10 seconds, but it doesn't make any difference. He designs now because that's it, finish.
f4, f5, very clean idea. You take away the g6 square and Magnus's rampage continues. Peter, with that, we have just one more game remaining. Let's jump to that. Adiban still playing against Boris.
Yeah, Adiban defending, okay, defendable. Yeah, this is a doable endgame. Slightly unpleasant, but now Adiban was just in time to give the check. And then Boris, he needed to activate the king. He had to give up the pawn, because if he just stays passive with king g8, holding on to his pawn, he has no winning chances whatsoever. So yeah, he does try this. Rook h7, rook c3, but it's very difficult to imagine this game not ending in an easy draw. A5. By the way, as I see, we had quite a lot of draws, but also, well, Ivan Saric beat Hans Niemann. Yeah, so that's a huge victory for Ivan. However, I think any comeback is already too late for Ivan. I don't think that we can really believe that he has chances.
Well, we're going to take a look at the standings once this game is over, but Ivan Saric is unlikely to make it. I don't think he's in the race for the quarterfinals, but along on his way, he can definitely ruin some chances. We've seen enough players do that in the Champions Chess Tour previously as well. Peter, Rook A2 check, pushing White's king further back on the board, but still, it looks with this A6 pawn counterplay, this shouldn't be difficult to hold.
Yeah, no, there is just no problem at all holding this from White's side. I mean, you're simply gonna go Rook A8 and A7, and you are threatening to move the Rook. In fact, it's a little bit funny, but yeah, you had to eliminate this H2 pawn, because otherwise, after Rook A8, A7, there would have been no square for Black King to hide against H3 and then H4 and then H5 and opening up the file for the Rook for a check. So yeah, this is the clean direction. Okay, it's a draw anyway, so Boris just feels like there is no need to go for any adventures.
Down to a minute.
Wow, I feel like this was maybe the shortest round of the tournament so far.
So far. Also, so much has happened that it looks like it's been many days, but this is just the 4th day, Peter.
Exactly. You know, it really, I mean, yes, so many incredible games in every round.
Many big fights.
Yeah. And okay, now we are in for this. This is the famous position that, yeah, usually you defend with the 3rd rank defense, but if the opponent has G or B pawns, even the very passive 1st rank or 8th rank back rank defense is good enough. This is
and also
famous.
Let's point out that once the pawn gets to G3, then you go on to, you can also give checks from the other side.
Yeah. But I mean, against G pawn, yeah, you can just even panic and defend on the back rank and nothing happens to you. Yeah.
All right, so the rooks are going to get traded. That is a draw offer from Boris, Rook E3. Why Adiban is thinking, I'm not really sure. He's, of course, thinking that Rook E3, King E3, he's calculating, but that is a draw, right? You just go King G2 and you get the opposition.
Of course, yeah. King F4, King F2. The only problem is that, yeah, you know that the rook end game you can't lose, especially with the G pawn. Do I want to, you know, run the risk of misclicking something? But yeah, okay, of course, this is children stuff.
They play it till stalemate, and there we have it. That ends in a draw. And with that, game 1 of the final day of the preliminaries is done. Let's take a look at the scoreboard. We've had only 3 decisive games with Magnus, Ivan Saric, Levon Aronian scoring wins. Magnus beat Christopher. Ivan beat Hans. For Hans, that's a big damper on his road to the quarterfinals, as currently he is on the edge. Levon Aronian won against Praggnanandhaa. He needs to keep that streak going if he wants a chance, because take a look at our standings going into round 14. Magnus leads with a full 3 points. Pretty impressive stuff, considering that he literally threw 1 game. And that's the only game he lost. He's at 28 points. Arjun Arigasi, a brilliant performance by Arjun so far in the tournament. He's at 25. And let's not forget, he lost against Magnus in round 1 and has been on fire since. Liam, who had a terrible start to the tournament, what a comeback he's made over the last 3 days, currently on 3rd spot with 21 points. Then there's Vincent and Jan-Krzysztof Duda with 20. Prague at 19, Hans still on 7th place, 18. And we see a turnaround here already on the first round of the final day of the preliminaries, with Levon replacing Anish Giri in the top 8. There are 2 big games coming up. Let's take a look at the pairings before we take a break. This is the action in round 14. Anish plays against Prague, a really important game for Anish. He needs to score big and he needs to win this one to find himself in the top 8. But of course, Prague will make sure he'll do everything he can that does not happen. Ivan against Levon. Levon again in the race for the quarterfinals. He needs to score big. Vasil against Hans. Important game all around. Jan-Krzysztof Duda plays David Navarra. Boris against Liam. Christopher versus Adiban. Wojtaszek plays Magnus Carlsen and Vincent against Arjun. Peter, I know your eyes are going to be on that last matchup.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, okay, it's heating up. Yeah, Vincent is 2 rounds away from qualifying, but still he got to 20 points, still very tricky. I mean, everybody is forced to win. You need the 3 points, and okay, there will be pressure. I mean, this will be a nerve-wracking game for all of the participants you mentioned. For example, Ivanchuk, if he still wants to make it, he needs to win his last 2 games. Hans also needs to bounce back. Levon is coming, and Prague is after losing under some pressure, and he plays Anish Giri with the black pieces. He has so much to look for. Anish needs to win himself. The drama all around.
Drama all around, and we'll be back with these juicy matchups right after this break.
We really had this merging of all of this energy and cultures and passion coming together. That couldn't have been done other than through Meetup.
It allows people to first discover us, quickly and easily understand how to join us and participate.
Air quality isn't the first thing that comes to mind when you think about chess and esports, but it affects our focus, decision-making, health, sleep, and more. What's in the air you breathe? Find out with AirThings.
How many times have you been stuck in a rut where you're just not improving? Why can't I improve? I'm 1600, 1800, even 2000. I can't get to the next level. What am I doing wrong? This course is aimed at taking you to the next level. I show you one game which has inspired me, which has really helped me in a particular idea. And this is what Baer said in his notes. The move h4 is not to try and checkmate black, it's to try and stop black from playing f5. And I'm going to show you one of my own games where I've used that idea and I've put it into practice. That's why I started playing h4 in multiple positions. I now play bishop e2, and you can see it's very similar strategy to the last game. I want to play h5. Best form of defense is attack, and calculation is key. Force your will on your opponent. Rook to d4. Boom! So get yourself a nice cup of coffee, get yourself a nice comfy seat, lay back and learn.
This is John. John loves to study chess. This is David. David loves to study chess as well, but efficiently. John spends more time setting up the board and figuring out what's on the page of his book than he gets to study. David likes to take it easy and use his time wisely. David has finished his exercise for today. John should try the same.
He played the Berlin, which I sort of expected, but I didn't really know what to do against, because in reality very few people do.
When we are playing an even game against someone of similar strength to us, usually we need to give something in order to obtain the initiative.
Just how shrewd and cunning Alireza can be, even with very little time.
I want to show you a game just to prove that I play these lines that I played against former world number 2 and a bit of a superstar, Gatakamsky.
Gains that confidence, plays a few good events, stops looking inwards into his own insecurities.
I like the no expectation part, so like that's something that has gotten better because sure, it's like not my full-time job.
It's definitely good for chess in India, and now there is Olympiad also, so there'll be more people following and taking up chess as professional sport.
Yeah.
And it's surprisingly concrete still, no? Like, e takes d4, good move, this d takes d4, this d takes d5.
This line was essential and forced, but also not rocket science to map out.
Hi everyone, it's Sam Shankland. I'm back here with Chessable. I just released a brand new course, the Chess Calculation Workbook, that I hope everyone will check out. But that's also not the only reason I'm here today. I did a couple endgame masterclasses last month after doing the video.
Welcome back, chat. We are in for a ride as we go into round 2 of the preliminaries. Let's take a look at our matchups that are coming up. And this is where we're at. Anish Giri against Prague. We've been discussing that Prague had a tough start against Levon, but he needs to make sure that things don't go too wrong. He did have a bit of margin finding himself in the middle of the standings, but now he has to be cautious. Meanwhile, Anish Giri needs to take every chance he gets to make it to the quarterfinals. Levon against Ivanchuk. Vasil plays Hans Niemann. Duda against David. Boris plays Liam. Liam on fire in this event. Christopher against Arjun. Wojtaszek plays Magnus, and Vincent against Arjun. This is the round 14, the penultimate round of the preliminaries. And this is where we stand with our standings. So as we can see, 2 games remain. So that's 6 points at stake. Top 8 make it to the quarterfinals. It will be the end of the road for the bottom half of the table. Now, with 6 points to be won, how I see it is that the maximum shuffling that's going to happen, Prague needs to be careful, but it's really on Hans and Levon. 7th and 8th spot is really up for grabs here. Anish Giri right behind Levon, chasing Levon by a point at 17. Wojtaszek as well as Vasil with 16. Peter's joining us, so let's bring him on in the conversation. Peter, these 3 players, Anish Giri, Wojtaszek, Vasil, Ivanchuk, we can see some turnarounds here. This is where I think the action is for the next 2 rounds with 6 points at stake.
Well, then, in fact, this Ivanchuk-Niemann game is super important, yeah, for both sides. And of course, Anish versus Prague, yeah, super important as well.
Yeah, and we have it here, our 16 players. Well, some of them are not on the camera yet, but today will be the last day that we'll see all 16 of them together. So take this in, chat. We will get one more of this shot once we have Magnus, Anish, and Ivan with us. We see they're ready to go. Also, Peter, one of the big storylines has been that who will Magnus play in the knockouts? And will we see another Magnus-Hans rematch? And we had this tweet by Chess by Numbers. Let's just bring that up. And these are the updated odds after round 13 of Magnus's potential quarterfinal opponents. And currently, Levon's the one who's replaced Hans Niemann. And this is what it looks like. Of course, this can very well change at the end of the upcoming round. Actions on. Let's get to it.
Yeah, for example, what do you think about this? Ivan Sadic against Levon Aronian. Ivan goes for the rook e1 Berlin. Now, should Levon be happy that he's kind of probably gonna make a draw effortlessly with black, or is this a problem for him? Yeah. On the other hand, if he would have felt that he needs to win at all costs, then maybe he should have played something else. But okay, he has also respect for Sadic. Sadic is very strong theoretician. I don't think that you want to gamble against him. Sticking to Berlin makes a lot of sense.
Well, probably Levon should also not risk too much in this game, because currently he's on 8th place and he still has one more game with white remaining. So if he doesn't get too many chances with black, and if his opponent is going for the Berlin, I think a solid draw would also make sense for Levon at this point.
Yeah, I mean, after winning the previous game, yeah, it makes a lot of sense. We don't know exactly the last round pairings. Yeah, this is also very tricky, but let's move to the Ivanchuk Hans Niemann game, because this is the anti-Berlin, which is much more complex. And it's always interesting because Vasil is not the player who likes to go for the most mainstream lines, and he's not trying with this knight bd2 move order to slightly sidestep the traditional ways, yeah, because usually white simply castles and then black decides whether he wants to go for the d5 or for d6 setups. Big question. Basically, knowing that Hans is a modern type of player, I'm expecting him more like to be a d5 type. But no, he goes rook e8, signaling that maybe he anyway wanted to play the rook e8 system. Does this mean that he wanted to play the rook e8 system? Rook e8 castles on the board, a6. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, he goes exactly as the old Levon system, which was also old Almashi system. It's a let me just show that what I'm talking about. That if white castles, then I mentioned that d5, d6 are the most trendy moves. But there is this rook e8 move order, which also Magnus played in all old games. I mean, one of them against Vichy, I think in the World Championship in Chennai, 2013. Almashi was also playing. I was playing this rook e8 myself a lot, just avoiding all these kind of main theories. And we are seeing this now. a6, bishop takes e6. D takes c6 is the traditional way. And what will Ivanchuk do now? Usually you go knight c4. Yeah, knight c4. And knight d7.
Blitzed out. So Hans knows what he's doing. So he's defended the e5 pawn. Bishop g4 would have been an alternative, but knight d7 played. And does black want to try to kick out the knight with b5 at any point?
Well, it's a double-edged question, yeah, because b5 you always have to reckon with some knight a5 move, putting pressure on the c6 pawn. I mean, you just want to stabilize the position first. Also, white has to make up his mind that how he wants to treat the position. Does he want to start advancing on the queen side with b4, a4, yeah, just to make sense of his c3 move, yeah, because usually we know this type of position with white pawn being on c2, not on c3. It slightly brings a different dynamic to the game. All right, we have seen enough. Let's move on, yeah?
Let's move on. This is a complex position. It will develop in a very important game for our standing. So we'll definitely come back to this. Now, the other one which has caught my attention is the matchup between Anish and Prague, Peter. Anish currently in 9th spot. Prague also had a loss against Levon. So a very crucial game for both these players in their road to the quarterfinals. Let's take it from the top.
Yeah, so it's a Rostolimo. E4, c5, knight f3, knight c6, bishop b5, and Prague lately started to play the e6 system. e6 castle, knight e7, rook e1, a6, bishop f1. The nice old classical system, which still puts some small pressure on black. It's not harmless. Knight f6, bishop e3. They are playing the old classical traditional way. I think in a long time ago, this was considered to be completely empty, but new engines had given some new ideas for white. Interesting that how well the players will be prepared. And by judging Prague's reaction, I mean, he's blitzing everything. He seems to be very familiar with what he's doing.
All right, well, that's 16, almost 17 minutes. Yeah, he is playing super fast, putting Anish a little behind on the clock. Rook c8 played, but clear idea. You want to take knight takes c4. White does have this pin on the c file, but if it's black's move, I think you can pick up the pawn, because even if white pins it, you've got this move b5. So it's actually a threat on c4, which white needs to parry right now.
Yes, I mean, I think some typical moves are knight a4 in this position, yeah, because it would be logical that you are eyeing to go knight b6, especially now that black committed the rook to c8. And then the question is, after knight a4, what happens, yeah? I'm believing that, yeah, knight a4 on the board.
Also, there are always ideas of going, wow, and Prague immediately plays rook d8. He goes rook c8 and rook d8. This is some deep prep.
Yeah, well, if you are from the white side, you wonder that is this some super prep, or did he just play rook c8 and miss knight a4? But I mean, knowing that Pragg chose this line, I can't believe that he missed. This is probably still preparation. Queen b6 played by Anish.
And it's kind of tricky to take on b6. I mean, these endings can be quite unpleasant for black. Queen takes b6. I think Pragg should keep the queens on the board and leave that knight on a4.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. But where do you move the queen to c8 maybe, yeah?
c8 or b8, I'm not sure. I was just buying some time to decide.
Yeah, I understand. Yeah, because white might be able to play queen a5 anyway. So yeah, queen c8 played.
Queen c8 played. So a4 knight is hanging. Queen a5 as you suggested.
Yeah, insisting on going knight b6. Also the queen nicely covering some important square from black's bishop. Yeah. Very, I mean, we do see that maybe this is Pragg's preparation. On the other hand, computer insists that white is better. So we don't know exactly if how
I think
deep.
One of the justifications in these structures, Peter, to not go queen b8 could also be that you allow knight c5. You really don't want white's knight to jump on to c5 or b6 very easily.
Yeah, I mean, okay, there are all kinds of finesses. The big question will be that this knight is disturbing. Yeah, knight b6 is coming. On the other hand, if you have to give up your bishop, yeah, for example, bishop a4, queen a4, then one has the feeling that you have to hurry up with some bishop c5. If white gets another move to play b4, then basically black is strategically lost. Yeah, so I think everything depends on this bishop c5. For example, rook ed1, and then white is against threatening b4. Does black have here a good reaction or not? Yeah, that's the key moment. But for the moment, Pragg also haven't made up his mind, so he did not take yet.
It's a bit scary to give up a bishop pair in this position because you know that it's a long-term thing. So it is quite committal. So I understand Pragg taking his time. Peter, the other alternative that came to my mind was knight c6. Is that something that black can consider?
Yes, definitely should. I also, while I was talking about this bishop a4, noticed that yeah, knight c6 is the other choice. So takes, bishop takes, at least you get a very nice bishop on c6. But I mean, still you have to deal with this knight entering, and also the pawns will start rolling. And he goes now queen b8. Okay, this I don't understand. This looks very strange.
What? Okay, that's just insane. I mean, Peter, can we just back up like 4 moves and just
exactly
show the 4 moves that Pragg has made? Yeah, from this moment, he plays rook c8, attack c4. Anish goes knight a4, and he goes rook d8. Then he goes queen b6. Pragg goes queen c8 instantly. Anish moves back with the queen, defends the knight, and he goes queen b8.
Yeah, very confusing.
That's a bit of a dance. Very confusing stuff, no?
Yeah, now try to explain what's going on. I have no idea. And I'm not sure if Pragg would be able to explain. Yeah, he just needs to make a move. Let's also not forget that he knows that this game is very important. He has just lost a very important game against Levon. With the black pieces, he's under pressure. I mean, he definitely needs to hold this game. Otherwise, he will be in a completely must-win situation in the last game.
To me, these last couple of moves seem to signal quite a deep understanding of the position, because unless you know that such ideas exist and you have the knowledge of that this is a possibility to play like this, to play this on seconds is very difficult. Rook c8, rook d8, queen c8, queen b8. Otherwise, moves like you're suggesting, bishop a4 or knight c6, what we were looking at, just feels like at least you'll give it some time to think about it. These are not, I mean, to me, these are not natural reactions.
Yeah, probably he's into the position. Yeah, because after all, he's still way up on the clock. Yeah, he has more time on the clock than he started. Of course, we know that he has the 10 seconds increment, but still, and Anish, I believe he knows the position quite well. I mean, he knew the theory. He knew that this is kind of probably a line that he wanted to play. On the other hand, he probably did not expect it. Yeah, and now he's taking his time because he knows that his position should be good. The big question is how to proceed.
All right, we will leave it to Anish to show us the way with the white pieces here and come back to this. Peter, let's take a look at Vincent versus Arjun. Now, while Arjun is safe for qualification, for Vincent, it's still a question. And it's a Carlsbad structure, as I can see. In general, it does appear that both players have sort of, I think black has gotten what black desires in these kind of structures. With this a5, b5 advancing white, not having that a3, b4 queenside minority attack, does white have to try to get a center break with e4 at some point? It looks like black should be fine, but then I see the eval bar and I realize I'm completely off.
No, well, actually, the whole point of this, that you said like black got what he's dreaming of in this line. I never understood why black plays this line, to be honest, yeah? Because to my eyes, this bishop on e6 guarantees that black will always be slightly worse, yeah, against the bishop on d3. And I know exactly that Magnus himself played a lot of these a6 lines, yeah? And after knight c3, d5, cd5, ed5, he basically loses the tempo in order to get to the Carlsen structure. And then, just to confuse everyone, I mean, he with the white pieces, now suddenly he plays this. Unfortunately, in the game was the wrong move order. But let me just show that what he has done against Jan, he has also done it against Firuza, that he takes cd5 here, ed5, and then goes knight c3. And now black has saved the tempo on a6, which Magnus quite often plays it from the black side. So it just shows that this is objectively a completely harmless kind of line from white side. But you just get a structure where probably Magnus feels superior, or he feels that he can handle that structure very well. And here now Vincent so-called got that structure with black committed the a6 move. So it should be good news. Definitely should be good news.
All right, let's come to our current position that we have. Peter, this is going to be a strategic battle from here, a slow game that's developing. Meanwhile, I'm going to ask you, let's just come to the current position, and maybe you can give us your final verdict on the evaluation. But we have to rush to the Ivanchuk Hans
yes,
board.
Well, I think that Vincent is slightly better. I mean, of course, black is super solid. And Arjun is very fast and everything, but yeah, basically white can just try to play this position without any risk. But let's go to Chuki.
Let's go to Chuki, because there have been some massive developments from my first feeling. Black has just won a pawn. You're up an extra pawn. There is a lot of pressure on c4. The b4 pawn always needs to be defended against. Hans has got two bishops. This is looking great for black right now.
Well, it looks almost lost for Chuki. I mean, okay, he has some hope because the knight is kind of blockading, but hang on. I mean, some CD, and then bishop b5 check, c4. Isn't it just game over?
I mean, it looks like a forced line. No, you just give a check and you start pushing this knight away. And
or even there is this argument of maybe even pushing c4 immediately, but why not to give a check also? Yeah.
Exactly. It's just so much simple to go bishop b5, and Vasil doesn't look happy with the position. What surprises me, Peter, is that how neither of them have used any time. It's so strange to come into this position, especially for Vasil with the white pieces, and not having consumed any time.
Yeah, and basically losing without a fight, just absolutely without a fight. Yeah, like slowing the game. It's, I mean, unbelievable. Yeah, it's 13.5 minutes to finish a game where with the white pieces you lose. I think after that game you just go crazy, because I mean, what is this? This is not chess.
And so much at stake. Peter, can we just back up and see, because when we last got an update on the opening, you know, it just looked like it's going to be a slow development. How did white end up in so much trouble so quickly?
Yeah, of course, the structure is very tricky. This two bishops versus two knights, the hanging pawns. Sometimes they are strong, sometimes they are weak. In any case, it looks like a strategical battle, and then it gets to this messy endgame, which doesn't look so bad for white at first glance. But what happened in the next couple of moves was a total disaster. Black advances the pawns on the queen side. Chuki is trying to set up some fortress, but yeah, here now he just lost the pawn on e4, and that's where we have already seen the action. And all this is happening. Wow, I mean, Hans is bouncing back, and we'll have all the chances to qualify, and for Vasil the road ends here.
But okay, Peter, white still has this d5 pawn, which can create some counter chances if given a chance. Right now, c4 played attacking the knight. Knight d4 feels like the only move that, yeah, it's played, knight d4. And can black actually just continue advancing the pawns? Is c3 an option here?
Definitely. I mean, after c3, I'm expecting knight d2 to b3.
you can't take the bishop because after CD2, it's queening immediately with rook E1 check coming in. So that's not a possibility. Let's just point it out. Rook A1 runs into rook E1 and that's game over. So you have to come with your knight to B3. Let's say you go knight B3. And I really want to try to attack your knight. And I'm wondering, but the thing is, do I have enough time? C3 on the board, rook E1, king H2 played.
Yeah, then he included rook E1 check, king H2, C3. I mean, just to open up the bishop. Okay, the bishop is pinned, to be fair, but I mean, I don't see a defense. Yeah, knight B3.
And now what, do you go bishop C4, rook B1? Do you have enough time for that? Because he goes
rook E8. Yeah, this is super clever. Yeah, just solving the problem of the pin, and it's game over, and Chucky knows it. Did you see his reaction? Yeah, and he resigns. Yeah.
And that's it. Wow, Hans Niemann wins, and he has bounced back from that loss, keeping his chances alive and kicking for the quarterfinals. But a heartbreaking moment for Vasyl here, because this would mean, Peter, that Vasyl, for any outside chance, has to win, and even then hope for different results to go his way in the final round. What has been really disappointing about this game was just how quickly things turned around, and both players had about 12 minutes on the clock. It just felt like, well, someone needed to slow down. Vasyl needed to slow down at some point.
Yeah, it looked like they got, I mean, especially Chucky got way too nervous. Yeah, because I think I have played enough games against him to know that when he plays so quickly, it means that he just cannot bear the tension or something. Yeah, it's if something is then not right. This was a very unfortunate game and very uncharacteristic. Yeah, I mean, we have seen him, for example, this first game against Prague, yeah, where he got a bishop c5 Spanish and played a brilliant game from the white side. In this game, he never really got a chance to show his skills. But he shouldn't have been rushing so quickly.
Yeah. It also reminds me of, you know, David's game against Hans. It's just the whole situation is affecting every single player in the field. Peter, we've got live action on some very critical boards. All right, let's start with Magnus versus Radek. And
yeah, because I don't know. I think that Radek also, if he still wins now against Magnus, then he would have a chance. He could fight in the last game for something.
Well, Radek currently is on 16 points, so he needs a win for sure to try to make it to the to have a chance on the last round. He's playing against Magnus, not going to be easy, but the position, it feels like White has built some pressure, just better placed pieces. Knight is jumping on to c6 at some point. You have control over the c file. Black can't go rook c8, which I think is a very key point, because you can probably just sacrifice. Go queen c8, bishop c8, rook c8, and after knight f8, you've got your knight jumping in, queen c5. I don't see an immediate way, but it looks like this is too much pressure on black.
Well, we have to calculate till the very end. So queen c5, b4.
And maybe it works because you've got rook d8 in the end.
Yeah, against queen d6, always rook d8. Yeah, that's clear. Just to highlight, also if black plays queen d6 here, then white plays rook d8. Queen c5, b4 probably does not change anything. And the question is that after king h2, the whole problem for black is that king g8 runs into knight e7 check. Okay, exactly. losing the queen, but also getting checkmated. It's the same if white rook would have been provoked to rook d8 because of queen d6. It's still the same mechanism seems to be winning.
Which means that if rook c8 isn't possible, there is real pressure on Magnus then.
Well, the question is that can you play a move like knight c5 or knight f6? Yeah, because you hit the bishop, you get a tempo. For example, if we can make the move knight c5.
All right, I can't go knight c6 immediately because the bishop's hanging. So I have to move the bishop, let's say bishop f3 or bishop b1. This is a tough choice. But I feel bishop b1 might run into bishop b7, and I don't want to allow that. So bishop f3.
Yeah, bishop b1, bishop b7, and then suddenly black is the one who gets very active. So bishop f3 would be...
Because the battery with bishop b1, queen c2 can easily be stopped with one move g6. And
but hang on, Magnus plays queen f8, and this I was trying to calculate, but it was just too complicated. That is it possible that after knight c5, knight c6, knight takes e4, and then queen moves on? But I don't believe in it. But Magnus did not want to go for this line. I mean, maybe it wasn't the reason. In any case, he plays queen f8. He's preparing rook c8.
That's actually a nice move. I mean, queen f8 first caught me by surprise, but it does nicely explain that rook c8 is now defended. Because once black does get rook c8, it will solve so many problems. Let's say it was black's move. Rook c8, knight c6, now you have bishop b7. And you just want to regroup your pieces and trade them off.
Exactly, yeah. This is a famous, like in the Lasker variation of the Queen's Gambit, that white seemingly has the initiative, but black is actually jumping out without any problems. And by the way, yes, I think this is the key, that after knight c5, the move you wanted to play bishop f3, and the knight on c5 is unstable. Knight c6 is a problem. b4 might be coming, and Magnus felt like, I don't like it. It's not as flexible as I would love to have. And the move queen f8, he still keeps an option, rook c8, knight c5, and eventually also knight f6. So he has much more flexibility in the position.
Very nice. And I mean, this small little move, queen f8, it just seems to solve all black's problem in a position that initially appears like white's pieces has so much activity. Now it's up to Radek how he counters the threat of rook c8. Peter, we'll come back to this. Let's get an update on the Arjun board, because once again for Vincent, it's a big match.
This is a big match, and he has a very nice position. I mean, Vincent is building up serious pressure. On the other hand, one should never forget about if the pawn would be on b2, then I would say that white is strategically almost winning. But this is a huge difference, because black eventually, if white, for example, trades at some point these two knights, then black will have this lovely square for his knight with knight c3, which will compensate for probably for the structural deficit. But at the moment, anyway, white is in total control. So what happened here? Hang on just a second. Rook a8. This was the position we left. Knight b6, knight e2, knight d7, knight f4, b4, and then Vincent took on e6 and fe6. Slightly strange. White goes e4, breaking the center immediately before black gets the chance, because if black breaks, black will be perfectly fine. So it's a typical position, who breaks first. And after d4, knight e4, queen f8, I feel like white should be quite happy. Yeah. So what is your take here?
I hate that black is not able to get this central break in. I mean, if black was able to play c5 at any point, then it looks like a very pleasant position. Also, the fact that this battery of this bishop and queen, and if it turns around, even ideas are going queen e2, going back with the bishop, putting the queen in front of the bishop, and this weakness of this diagonal, I would be worried as black here, simply because the pawn structure is bad, the light square weaknesses, and it just feels that white's pieces are prepared to take advantage of both these aspects.
Yeah, it really feels that Arjun misjudged or something. I mean, we see the evaluation bar giving white a clear advantage. We don't know exactly, practically speaking, how the players are feeling. By judging and seeing that Vincent is spending quite some time, he probably believes that this is a golden opportunity, this is a big moment. On the other hand, we have seen it already that wasting too much time in a middle game can later cost the point, because you run out of time.
Peter, what about if we had to come up with a concrete idea or a plan that would demonstrate how dangerous the position would be? And I was going to ask you, what would it be? And Vincent here has made the move knight d2. So rerouting the knight. But the one thing that I was worried about moving this knight is that does this give black the additional possibility of breaking with c5?
Well, probably Vincent doesn't mind c5. After c5, he probably wants to take and then put something on c4. I'm assuming this is the idea.
I'm slightly surprised because the knight on e4, it just felt like there was no rush to move it, no? It felt like a well-placed piece.
Yeah, well, I mean, definitely if you worry about c5, then yes, it wasn't on my radar. I have to say, honestly, I wasn't expecting the move knight d2, but it also makes sense. Yeah, it tries to redo the pieces, also give the move to black. Yeah, that okay, please make a move.
I want to go c5 here. I definitely want, if I get the chance. you go c5 here. You've got to try to break your weaknesses.
All right. Okay, but I think c5 on the board. We might also have some more sharper position, yeah, because this is still a strategical battle.
All right, let's take a look at the Prague game, Peter. Another very important game for Anish and Prague both, and it's an interesting middle game.
Wow, yes, it's very interesting because now suddenly it looks to me like Prague has solved all his problems. I mean, before we were worried of him, what he's really doing, but what happened here shows that Anish did not find the right way. He played b4, bishop e8, b5, a b5, and after knight b5, he gave the chance for black to play knight d3. I don't believe that I wanted to give up the bishop. I mean, bishop d3, rook d3, and now suddenly black is alive. I mean, alive in a sense that black gets very serious counterplay, and also he has wonderful pieces. I mean, no weaknesses. The pawn structure is now kind of damaged for white. I don't really understand why Anish played like this.
I love black's position. I mean, with this bishop on c6, targeting g2, a double bishop advantage. White doesn't even have a pawn for it. Definitely feel that black is doing absolutely fine here. And I see our eval bar confirms it as well. Prague out of any danger at all.
Yes, exactly. I mean, a little bit surprising from Anish. It's also not his style, but probably the pressure, yeah, that he knows that he needs to win. He's down to 3 minutes. Actually, he's down to 3 minutes against 8. I don't see him winning this game.
Peter, some tactical skirmish going on in the Vincent Arjun game. So let's just go back to that from where we left it. And let's just take a look at the decisions that were made. So after knight d2, c5, bishop a6 was played, hitting the rook. Arjun decided to attack the rook. And now the idea that you mentioned takes on c5 now because the pawn is hanging and, well, maybe rook a6 will be played and that would be the end of any tactical skirmishes.
Yeah, and now we understand. So this was Vincent's idea with knight d2, that he has foreseen that after c5, he will have this very annoying bishop a6, because if the rook moves to c7, then it will be an eternal pin. Then in fact, probably white can simply return with the knight and win the pawn.
I think the pawn's just lost in this. Yeah, so this is a nice little idea. So rook a8 was played, and the current position that we have, we see a beautiful knight that Vincent has on c4. E6 is a big weakness. A5 is a weakness. Light square is still weak. So a different kind of an advantage from, you know, having the bishop on the board.
Yeah, it's stabilized. I think practically speaking, it's very nice for white.
All right.
Less to worry about. Yeah, it's more clear cut. The only question that, yeah, how are you gonna break the position?
Okay, we'll wait for Vincent to tell us how. Now, Levon has chances, but he needs to be at least drawing this endgame. Let's just go to this one, Peter. It's quite interesting, but I feel like black should be in time.
Yeah, black should be in time. I mean, with the bishop controlling the diagonal, the long diagonal, the a8 square. So basically, even if white pushes the pawn to a7, it doesn't bring anything. It's very important that the king is not running towards the a8 square, because then why would you? You just follow the king, yeah? For example, just to illustrate, black is now waiting, you push a7, we wait, and then when white starts bringing the king back, then you also move with the king. Yeah, and you are just following. If it goes back, you go back. If he goes this way, you just follow it, and nothing can happen, and the bishop just stays on the long diagonal. It's a completely elemental draw.
Nice. And also let's point out, if instead of a7, white goes king a7, trying to go king b8 and a7, then black goes king c8, again following the king. But in the
Exactly. Just follow the king. Yeah, Levon even goes f5. And now we just going to see that whenever white plays king d4, then king e6 will happen. And that's it.
Just not allowing the white king to penetrate. And this is going to end in a draw. Not a big disaster for Lev. He's still on the edge. It all comes down to his final round, which he'll play with the white pieces. Tad can perhaps update us. Who is Lev meeting in the final round? And let's move. And there we have our final round pairings, by the way. Wow. Anish, who's also on the brink of qualification, plays Arjun. So tough one for him. Vincent will be up against Magnus, Peter. So that's going to be a big fight. Then
Yes.
Adiban plays Radek, Liam against Christopher, David and Boris, Hans with Jan-Krzysztof Duda. That's a big matchup right there. Levon will play Vasil. Very interesting games for the final game to decide the qualifying spots.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, nobody is safe. Yeah, it's with all the nerves in the game. Now let's take a look. I mean, Anish has pushed. I mean, played the move knight e7 and pushed black's bishop on to g6. I don't know exactly what to think of this. Yeah, knight e7, bishop e4, knight c3, bishop g6. It does feel like white achieved something. I mean, that's the idea what Anish had in mind, that his knights are controlling the position. On the other hand, black only needs one move, rook d8, and will be super happy, or even maybe knight e4. And the big time advantage for Prague, yeah, also very important. And hang on, what is Duda doing? So in fact, also for Duda, it is still very important because he also has like 20 points he's sharing with Vincent. I think the situation, and in order to be safe, he needs to win, and he's down to a minute against David Navarra. All right, in a complex position.
Yeah, what is this position? I mean, it's nothing's clear so far. He's played the move knight b6, so offering trades. The b7 pawn is hanging. What does he have? What does he have in mind for bishop b7? Does he want to play? Because bishop f5, there's e4, but b5 is hanging. Bishop g7. Bishop e7 is possible here, no?
Yeah, maybe possible, but there is a reason probably why he's spending so much, and he doesn't take. He doesn't take.
Bishop d4, he did not like something. He plays the move bishop d4, also targeting the b6 weakness, so both pawns are hanging.
Yeah, but apparently computer doesn't like it. Queen g6, yeah, and Navarra, I mean, the David is very dangerous if he suddenly gets the feeling that he can create counterplay and the opponent is losing the control. And look at this now, rook takes d4 is a big threat because there is a pin. Bishop f5 is a triple pin as well, and Duda is down to 38 seconds. Oh my God, how will he react to this?
He's going to go e4. He's going to go e4 because it's the way to fight both threats, and it's also really difficult to come up with an alternative right now.
But okay, then just bishop takes this, he wins the pawn, yeah, because queen has also protected the b6 pawn. Duda in trouble.
Bishop a3 because rook d4 is your idea.
Yeah, well, actually, I even blundered that my bishop was hanging, but yeah, I mean, this queen g6 pin just destroyed me completely, so I can imagine also Duda's feelings now.
He plays queen c3, so now bishop a3 isn't possible. But now bishop f5, no? Oh, bishop a3 anyway, Tad is mentioning, and Peter, after queen a3, there's rook d4, because the rook on b1 is hanging.
I told you this triple pin, it's not just double, it's triple pin drives me, and bishop a3 on the board played.
Wow. Peter, I'm telling you, he had to play e4. This pin is just very, very annoying. You had to block it when you had the chance.
No, he should have not played bishop d4. He should have listened to you and taken on b7. That would have been the move, yeah. Oh Queen. My God, yeah. And Duda is in a lot of trouble. So in fact, this last round against Hans will be a game for both sides. Maybe we'll need to win it. I don't know. Bishop b4, queen c7. At least it will be very tough for Duda to escape in this game with 20 seconds on the clock.
And Jan-Krzysztof shaking his head. Definitely missed this tactic and this big power of the queen on g6. I think queen g6 was such a nice move. Defends b6 and created all these difficult threats. Now bishop f5. There's no e4 possible. The rook also doesn't have too many comfortable squares. Because the bishop will be pinned, Peter, once you move the rook from d3.
Yeah, no, it's just a total catastrophe. Yeah, e4, and we see the computer also just says like it's game over. Yeah, you are pinned. Everything is destroyed.
Everything's destroyed. You can't go bishop b6 because of rook d3. And if you go rook queen b6, there are all these ideas of just ignoring everything and going h4, h3 as well.
Yeah, h4 also just rook d7 followed by rook fd8. I mean, all kinds of just normal moves because you can't. And down to 5 seconds, Duda plays rook e3. But now queen g4, you will be forced to play f3, even weaken the structure.
Duda just continuously shaking his head.
Yeah, because one thing I know from Duda that if he has little time on the clock, it doesn't matter at all. But having a bad position, that's the real bad news.
And the problem with a move like rook e3 is there'll always be these pins now along the d file that you have to constantly watch out for. Well, David's just trying to find the right square for the queen. Queen g4 is tempting. Queen g6 is tempting as well, making sure that you can't pick up the pawn on b6.
Yeah, but somehow queen g4, if you are forced to play f3 and then I'm going to go queen g6, it looks so tempting to even provoke this f3, right?
Yeah, that's a nice idea. Go queen g4, force f3, then go back queen g6 on the board.
Yeah, because then also we have the other problem. Now we will be pinned along the other diagonal. Oh my God. This is deadly. f3 just queen g6 and...
Maybe he can go queen f5 so that queen b6, bishop c5 does that.
Yeah, it's also it's a little bit too fancy, but yes, I also thought like maybe David will play queen f5.
It's fancy, but if it wins on the spot, then you go for it because actually it attacks b5 and bishop c5 is a massive threat.
Yeah. Duda in a lot of trouble. On the board.
Peter, he's gone for it. David goes for the most direct line.
Yeah, this is also typical David. I mean, he is not afraid of making a little bit strange looking moves. If it's good, it's good. And Duda lost on time, or did he make a... No, he did make a move with 2 seconds on the clock, but it does not change anything.
You can still go bishop c5. You can still go bishop c5, trade the bishop, rook d1, queen queen c5. And this move f3, Peter, which was so important to provoke so that the rook is pinned. You're pointing simply queen takes b5 an option as well.
Well, I mean, yes, you can take, but also what you are saying, bishop c5, the pawn is not running away, yeah, because after trade, everything you are again using the pin, and also this is hanging, rook e8 is threatening to trade the rooks. Yeah, basically bishop c5 wins on the spot.
You pin and you win.
Yes, and that's always useful, yeah. Yeah, I mean, this is a terrible blow for Duda. I mean, in such an important game to misjudge, to blunder this queen g6 pin. And after that, position completely went out of control.
I think if he plays bishop c5, then Jan-Krzysztof will play rook d3. That's the whole point, because you can't really...
Yeah, finally, okay, he takes on d4. It's the other way that you can also take like this, and then you collect on b5.
And rook d3? Rook d3 runs into queen d3.
Yes, let's just highlight this, that where pins are pins. Yeah, so queen d1.
All right. And meanwhile, Anish, Prague is still pretty even. We have an opposite color. All right, we can come back to this if you'd like. And Magnus is winning. Let's go to his board, Peter, because it appears that this guy is just unstoppable.
Yeah, wow. I mean, it looked like a rather peaceful position, and he just manages to win this. And then poor Radek is finishing the journey, and then he has no chances anymore. Yeah, no, okay. The b5 pawn is falling, yeah.
Very inspired, Magnus. He's been having some just incredible games here, Peter. If we think about his game against Lev, was it, where he sacrificed that bishop on f4 and then went on to outplay with the white pieces, and then converting these just positions which you think are just equal and no problem at all, and then he just goes on to somehow make something out of it.
Yeah, okay, probably it was also not connected with Radek's mindset, that Radek knew that draw is probably not enough for him, and he was maybe trying to look for chances, and then Magnus, of course, countered it beautifully. That's what I'm kind of guessing. Because if Radek would have just tried to shut the game down, I don't think that anyone could have stopped him. But this kind of mindset that you know that you need to win, and then Magnus is immediately punishing your ambitious moves, it's a problem. So now b2, knight c2 will be the last try, but king b3.
And then knight d4, king a2. He goes knight b5 and stops it this way, controls a3, and this will be resignations now. Nothing to stop the b pawn from queening. Peter, just a phenomenal run by Magnus. I mean, whether it's the opponents playing ambitiously and he making use of it, or coming up with these creative ideas, this is an unstoppable Magnus.
Yeah, I mean, of course, if Magnus has the chance to go for the initiative, then it's not that the opponents are ambitious. Yeah, they are trying to survive. But yeah, it's last game against Vincent, so Vincent needs to try to get the maximum out of this game to be safe. I mean, he will be able to torture 3 versus 2, rook knight versus rook knight. This is very ugly to defend, but maybe manageable with this time control. I mean, Arjun is up on the clock, but the position is very nasty. Okay, rook e8 check. Bit surprising, I have to say. I was expecting a move like knight h5. Why is Vincent giving this check? He should have a... so king f7, he wants to go rook c8 and then to threaten with rook c7. Check. I mean, it's a very unpleasant position for black. Not easy to hold.
Taking his time to decide whether to go to f7 or h7. f7 might be the normal response. By normal, I mean the hand move that you make. But he sees the problem, and Peter, maybe this is what even Vincent saw, that after rook c8, the g7 pawn becomes very difficult to defend in that position.
Yeah, but also now after rook e7, I don't see why things have really improved for black. Yeah, knight h5 is a big threat.
You might have to go for rook b6, rook g6, but that looks absolutely ugly.
Yeah, then you are boxed, and no, by the way, after rook b6, maybe knight e6 is an option as well.
That's even cleaner, not allowing rook g6.
Yeah, so he maybe needs to play the move rook b4 in order to... but rook b4 runs into knight h5. Hang on.
Rook b4, knight f6.
Oh my God. Okay, then how is black supposed to defend this?
Let's have our live board up. So knight h5, knight e6, 2 big threats on the board.
King g8 played. But I mean, after king g8, knight h5, you will have to move the g pawn. I mean, and then the 7th rank will be weakened like this. How can you survive this? It's very hard to imagine. But okay, these young guys are wizards, yeah? So who knows? Maybe Arjun will manage to find, I mean, a way to escape, but looks very ugly.
Knight h5 on the board. I wonder if black has any tactical resources like king f8, rook g7, but hard to see how you can make use of this position.
Yeah, I'm only slightly surprised why Engine is not giving a bigger plus. Yeah, that's why I feel that maybe there is some defense. And these young guys are capable of finding, I think all the guards, they look at, okay, this looks very ugly, and you don't believe that you can hold. Often this is also the problem. Yeah, these young kids, they believe that they can hold everything.
All right, so how bad is it to push the g pawn, really? g6 runs into rook g7, you pick it up, so you have to go g5 right now.
Yes, you have to play g5, and you see that Arjun, who is usually playing very quickly, is still taking his time. I mean, this g5 is finally on the board.
Also, black can try now to make use of the f4 square if he gets time, but I don't know if he'll get time because there's all these checks coming. Rook e3 he starts with. All right.
Yeah, he goes rook e3.
Rook
okay,
b1
basically provoking rook b1 check. Yeah, king h2, knight d5.
That's fine. I mean, how
rook
bad
e5
is that?
hunting the knight because the knight can't be protected due to rook takes d5 tactics. And then the 4 comes into play, so the knight has to move. And where do you move the knight?
Not pleasant because you can't go knight f4 because then he'll probably trade and win this pawn.
Yeah, knight b4, knight b4 trying to come from behind, knight d3, attacking the f2 pawn, trying to get the tempo, but what does this really help?
I'm still trying to win this h6 pawn somehow, but I don't see a way. He just simply pins it. That's nice. Now you have to go rook b2 to try to unpin yourself.
Yeah, rook b2, but then we will have this extra tempo with knight d3, so I'm not sure that I'm happy with this. Okay, rook b8 check given. Rook b7 check as well.
Go king g6. King g6 is mate in 1.
Yes, that's for sure. We just have to highlight it. But yeah, king f8. So this was actually the plan of Vincent. Yeah, that he wanted to get this possession. We see that the evaluation bar screams that this is now fantastic for white. Why exactly? Knight G3, Knight F5 wins in the knight endgame, wins the pawn. Vincent finds it.
Vincent immediately finds it, Peter. What a technique there by him. Now he's going to trade and go knight F5. And because the king is on F8, there is no way to defend the H6 pawn. Such nice play by white here.
Yeah, well, if he converts it, then basically he guarantees a qualification spot, regardless what happens against Magnus. This would be a dream scenario, of course.
All right, king G3, just slowly defending the F2 pawn, not making any committal moves. And meanwhile, I just see our bar shoot up in the Christopher Yoo against Adhiban game. Looks like Adhiban is in massive trouble. Peter, we will, do you want to just quickly move to that and then come back to
Yeah, of course, because okay, I'm entrusting Vincent to win that game, and basically if Christopher wins, he will jump, and in the last game, if he wins, he will have maybe a chance to qualify.
Exactly. If Christopher wins this game, then he gets a real chance at qualification. So it's a big one.
Yeah, and knight F5 check is coming, and that's the reason why, because the pawn endgame will be completely winning. And otherwise, there shouldn't be any way of stopping this pawn. Yeah, for example, okay, knight F5 check now.
And if you go king F8, then you can go knight D6, king F6 will come in.
Yes, and okay, G7, knight, whatever, but even Christopher goes different direction. He goes knight C4, A4.
And Peter, this is such an exciting tournament situation because that is informing us that if Christopher actually wins this game, which it looks like he is about to, there could potentially be 4 people tied for the 8th spot. So anything can happen in the last round.
Absolutely. I mean, but it felt like this. Yeah, this was the feeling that this last round will be very bloody and very dramatic.
All right, he's made the move G7. So the point is you have king H6, which defends it, and everything is under control. And you're going to go knight D7, knight F6. Black will play bishop B3 though.
Yeah, but okay, now knight D7, and after bishop B3, king G6, and it's finito.
No, after bishop B3, knight king G6, and then you're good.
No, I mean knight, of course, yeah, knight F6, queen's on the spot.
Yeah,
but
queen's on the spot.
Yes, okay, it's basically just game over. Yeah, knight F6 now and finish.
Wow. That is some amazing technique by both these players, Vincent and Christopher Yoo. Christopher Yoo, the youngest participant, he's all of 15 years old, playing his first Champions Chess Tour. It's his first time in this crazy demanding format, which has seen even the heavyweights really struggle to make it to the top 8. And Christopher Yoo is on his way to do that. He finds his real chance by winning against Adhiban. What a performance, Peter, regardless of what happens in the last round for Christopher.
Absolutely. I mean, okay, he's very strong, but already in the Julius Baer Challengers event, you could also feel that he's very dangerous. So one shouldn't underestimate that the young stars had this wonderful opportunity, yeah, thanks to Julius Baer's challenge, to gain tremendous experience. And they were also fighting for all these qualification spots. I also talked to Vincent. He was telling me that this helped him tremendously, yeah, because he gained so much confidence. He got to know how to play under pressure, yeah, and it was wonderful initiative.
There's no question about that, Peter. Even for Prague actually qualified for the first Champions Chess Tour that he played by winning the Challengers Tour. And once he did that, once he got his chance to play the Big Boys League, I mean, we've seen the big improvement that he's had. So the Julius Baer Challengers Chess Tour was just such a big opportunity for these young talents and prodigies to play with these top players of the world and really show that they belong there.
Yeah, and the point was that back then it looked like these are talents, right? And then just a couple of months later, Abdusatulov became the Rapid War champion. And it just shows that how strong the field was. Yeah, Vincent was playing, Prague was, Gukesh was playing, Abdusatulov, Christopher Yoo, Lian Gavander, I mean, all these very strong players.
Now we can't even imagine them. I mean, now you can't imagine Prague playing in Challengers Tour or Gukesh playing there because, and it was
just a year ago. Yeah.
Just a year ago. And it's not one opportunity. The thing is that once they qualify for the Champions Chess Tour, they get regular chances to play against the world's best. And that is the big point there. That every month you're competing with the top players of the world.
Exactly. I mean, you can learn a lot. you know that you have to prepare a lot. Yeah, this is also, it motivates, encourages you to work a lot, because you know that otherwise you will not stand a chance. Yeah, and all these kind of things, yeah, that you have a chance, and it encourages you and forces you to work even more. I mean, this combination with the talent of the players, this is of course a wonderful chance, wonderful opportunity. And this is the last game. Yeah, everything else finished.
This is the final game, and we've had 4 decisive results so far, and it all comes down to this one: Vincent against Arjun. Vincent with a winning position, but he still needs to convert it. Arjun, even if he loses, has made it already to the quarterfinal simply with his phenomenal performance in the first 3 days of the preliminaries. But for Vincent, it's a big point, and if he wins this one, he secures his spot.
Yeah, I mean, there was a moment when Arjun won 5 games in a row. Basically, that I think clarified everything. Then he was also leading the tournament, yeah, until Magnus also started winning almost all his games.
The only time Arjun's qualification was in doubt in this tournament was after game 1.
Exactly. Okay, after that crushing defeat against Magnus, nobody would have expected that it will be such an easy ride for him.
King e7 played, and jumping around with the knight. So, okay, Peter, break this endgame down for us. Where does Vincent want his knight before he plays f4?
Yeah, that's the point. I mean, the position looks so nice that you know that finally you will have to play f4. But Vincent is also probably trying to win the g5 pawn first. He's trying to put black in Zugzwang, but somehow, yeah, this knight e4 king d7 position that it's not designs, but black can still wait, was a little bit putting Vincent under some pressure. He's moving the knight again,
gaining some seconds.
Knight d6, forcing the knight away, and yeah, he wants to get knight e4 check and then come with the king. Okay, very clever play, not to push f4, not to weaken anything.
So can black go knight d8 just to keep the e6 square under control?
Well, but knight d8, then we're gonna give a knight e4 check, and no matter what, our king is coming closer probably.
But I didn't see another move, Peter. The alternative was h8 and h6, which I don't want.
yeah, no, of course, no, knight d8 had to be played. It's also on the board. And okay, now knight e4 check and then f4. This is not okay. Vincent even goes king d6 first. He wants to get his king to e7, and then he goes, I mean, against knight b7 check. He goes king e7, and then he will start pushing.
He might go king c7 and push that knight to a5.
No need for it. No need. I mean, let that knight run away.
Getting trapped, Peter. Knight a5, knight d2. The knight is trapped. I'm telling you, it's going to happen. He's going to go king c7 now.
Wow. Yes, really. King c7, knight a5, knight d2 traps the knight.
And king b6. It's game over.
Wow.
Isn't it?
Yeah, no, it's true, but no, Vincent is not a machine. Yeah, you are a machine already, but
how am I a machine, Peter?
just he plays king e7. I mean, he knows that f4 is winning. There is no need to look for this beautiful win. But yeah, king c7, knight d2 was wonderful.
It was such a nice knight trap, and I would have been so happy to see it on the board. But of course, Vincent goes your way.
And goes my way. Yeah, it's not always the best way. Yeah, I mean, it's if of course, yeah, he could have trapped, or and you see he notices knight d2, but too late.
I'm telling you, he sees it now. But now I don't think you can build it, because you can go king d6 still, and he goes king d6, but I don't think you get, because now knight d4 comes in.
Yeah, and also now suddenly black is jumping knight e2. Okay, luckily knight e2 will be always answered by knight e4, so it's not a big deal. So king d5 will be played, I guess. But hang on, knight e2, knight e4, some knight g1.
Then you have to play f4, no? Then you
can't finally you have to play f4. And Vincent down to 18 seconds. He's fooling around. Yeah, king d5.
Okay, king d5 played. After knight e2, there will be knight e4, knight g1. We will have a pawn push eventually. He will have to change the structure. But the knight on g1 is very unstable and can again get trapped there.
Well, or okay, just queen those pawns. I mean, okay, let's forget about trapping the knight. I mean, yeah, knight c2 played by Arjun. Okay, he's very tricky. Now f4 would be a terrible blunder. Knight e3 would make a draw on the spot. Yeah, Vincent goes king e5. Wow, suddenly it's becoming nerve-wracking, yeah, that Vincent, okay, now king e4. I mean,
I'm still looking for ways to trap this knight.
Yeah, okay, king e4 is a good direction, no? I mean, just come back.
Direction. You have to go knight c2, and then we can go king.
Knight c4, okay.
Like if you go knight e1 now, then knight e3 is game over.
Yes, yes. No, I mean, Arjun, yeah, plays king f6, knight e3.
Knight e3 played.
So knight b4, knight d5 check. Thank you very much. So only h3 square remains.
It's getting close, Peter. It's happening. And now he's going to go king d5.
Well, okay, but why not just knight d5 check and then push f4? But Vincent doesn't want to push f4, okay.
But now maybe the knight is on a3 and he goes for it. He goes for f4 finally.
He goes for f4. So knight b5, knight d5 check, king e6. You're going to offer me the chance to take on g5, which would be a mistake, I guess. Okay, knight b5 will be played. No, knight b1.
Knight b1, and now do you play against... Okay, knight d2 check is not a threat. He goes knight d5.
Knight d5, king e6.
Do you do the triple pawn? Do you go fg5 or not is the big question.
Yeah, it's a big question, yeah, because probably it's winning as... I mean, okay, you don't want to get this knight d2 check, but yeah, of course, the f5 check is more normal. f5, king d6. Knight f6, yeah, heading towards h7, trying to just eliminate. I mean, Vincent had his eyes on this g5 pawn. He wanted to win it. And it seems that's it. There is just no way of, no check will really help. Knight d2 check will be played nevertheless. I think knight d2 check has to be played.
All right, then you go king d3.
Yeah. And okay, knight f1 is nothing, so I have to play knight f3, and okay, now it's...
So we go knight e4 and king e3 and win the g5 pawn. But then you've got knight e5.
So it's actually knight f1 check. Now on the board.
King E2 now. Peter, what about king e2 now? Okay, he decides to go king f2. So there was, you know, I just want to point out king e2, knight g3, king f2, knight f5 would be the perfect way to draw this position.
Yeah, I mean, it's such a tricky, I mean, this trying to trap the knight, but this is not a very clean way, yeah, because the knight has to move and then knight e4 check, knight take g5. That should be it.
But there's knight e5, which actually might win the g4 pawn, no?
Yes, but it means that after knight e4 check, you have to go king e7.
Okay, I will.
Yes, you will, yeah. Yes, you go back and knight g5, you have knight e5.
It still goes on.
It still goes on, yeah. I mean, okay, usually if you get 2 pawns and knight, you think that you are completely winning, but since you are trying to win a 3rd pawn, it's psychologically tricky. King d5 on the board.
Okay, same idea. So knight takes g5, runs into knight e5.
Yeah, but I mean, knight takes g5 and now just king e3, knight takes g4, king f4. I mean, okay, this is...
Can he go f6 directly here? And he goes for it, f6, because f7 is coming if you take on g4. So you have to come back with the king.
And now what does he do?
That's a great question.
I mean, I just wanted to be very systematic. King e3, knight g4, king f4, and okay, just 2 connected passers and win. But yeah, knight e4 check, so king d5 has to be played.
You can't go g5 because you take the knight, so the pawns aren't going further.
And now he will play king e3, yeah?
Yeah, king e3, knight g4, king f4 is going to happen.
Yeah, that should be clean enough. Then knight e5 and then king f5. But down to 12 seconds. Vincent needs to make, yeah, finally he makes the move. Yeah, king e3. Knight g4, king f4. I mean, oh my God, even in the so-called simplest position, you can lose so much nerves if you are rooting for someone. Unbelievable. Knight e5, king f5. And the good news for all the Arjun fans that they don't need to be really worried because he has already qualified. Knight f7, knight g5. Did the last round already started, by the way, just to keep an eye on it?
All right, but we'll probably stick to the end of this game.
Yeah, because it will just end in any second.
Oh, before the last round starts, there's going to be a 10-minute break for everyone. We're getting an update.
Yes, because this is absolutely correct. Yeah, so that you know that everybody knows the situation. That's it. Vincent wins, so he qualifies as well as Arjun.
Wow, congratulations to Vincent and to you, Peter. I know if there was one person you were rooting for in this event, it is Vincent. And it's, of course, big news for him to make it to the quarterfinals. So still has a last round to play, but it probably doesn't matter. Now, chat, this is where we stand. Top 8 make it. One more game to play. 3 points at stake. Peter, what does that mean? That actually, it's all between 5th place and 11th place. That's where we can see the turnaround happen.
Yeah.
Wow, that's a very complicated chart that we have in front of us. So these are the, all right. So the top, Magnus Carlsen, Arjun Argassi, Liam, Vincent, Hans. These are in, these players are in, Peter. It's confirmed. Hans Niemann and Magnus Carlsen make it to the quarterfinals. So we might see a matchup there. Praggnanandhaa has an 87% chance. Jan-Krzysztof Duda with a 91% chance. David Navarra 43%. Lev with a 45% chance to make it.
Wow. I mean, all to play for in the last round. Just shows that how big tournament it is. Yeah, it's nobody's safe. I mean, okay, the top guys now are safe there on the first 4-5 positions, but I mean, for the last places, it will be incredible big fight.
This is incredible stuff because Magnus, yeah, we're getting a confirmation. Magnus, Arjun, Liam, Vincent, Hans, they are safe going into the last round. Ivan Saric, Boris Gelfand, Adiban have no chances at all. Everybody else, apart from Ivan, Gelfand, and Adiban, have a chance to make it. Wow, thank you so much to Club ELO for giving us this, this chart, explaining and breaking this down to us. That's super helpful. Shout out to Club ELO for this. And Peter, this means we're in for quite a ride on the last round, depending on the pairings. Let's take a look. There are about 7 minutes to lift off. Let's bring up our pairings.
Yes, let's take a look because this is so important. Yeah.
And this is what it is. All right, I'm also going to pull out our chat so we know exactly what's going on. And which matches really matter right now is the big question. So Arjun and Anish, a very important match only for Anish in his road to qualification. Anish has a chance. Magnus and Vincent, it's not important for the standing, simply because Magnus and Vincent are both in the quarterfinals. Adiban versus Radek. An important one for Radek. Adiban has no chances at all. Liam versus Christopher Yoo. Again, Liam is in. Christopher Yoo needs to win to have any shot at qualification. David Navarra plays Boris Gelfand. Again, in this match, Peter, David needs to be careful. Hans Niemann against Jan-Krzysztof Duda. Hans is safe. Duda needs to fight for his chance. Levon Aronian against Vasil Ivanchuk. Both these players have a shot at qualification, so this is a very crucial match. Praggnanandhaa against Ivan Saric. Again, for Prague, a super important match. Meanwhile, Saric is out of the race.
Yeah, wow. In fact, then I was too harsh with Chucky, and I'm very happy that he still has a chance. And it will be an incredible El Clasico between Levon Aronian and Vasil Ivanchuk finding out. But of course, even maybe just the win will not be enough because some other concurrents will also win. Yeah, so much at stake, so much happiness, joy, and tears will be all in the play in this last round.
It's everything to play for with so many players fighting for these spots. And as we are being confirmed that it's just 5 players who are safe. So 3 big spots up for grabs. And we'll be back with the final round of the preliminaries in just a couple of minutes. Chat, stay with us. You don't want to miss this final round action.
Air quality isn't the first thing that comes to mind when you think about chess and esports, but it affects our focus, decision-making, health, sleep, and more. What's in the air you breathe? Find out with Air Things.
How many times have you been stuck in a rut where you're just not improving? Why can't I improve? I'm 1600, 1800, you know, even 2000. I can't get to the next level. What am I doing wrong? This course is aimed at taking you to the next level. I show you one game which has inspired me, which has really helped me in a particular idea. And this is what Baer said in his notes. The move h4 is not to try and checkmate black, it's to try and stop black from playing f5. And I'm going to show you one of my own games where I've used that idea and I've put it into practice. That's why I started playing h4 in multiple positions. I now play bishop e2, and you can see it's very similar strategy to the last game. I want to play h5. Best form of defense is attack, and calculation is key. Force your will on your opponent. Rook to d4. Boom! So get yourself a nice cup of coffee, get yourself a nice comfy seat, lay back and learn.
This is John. John loves to study chess. This is David. David loves to study chess as well, but efficiently. John spends more time setting up the board and figuring out what's on the page of his book than he gets to study. David likes to take it easy and use his time wisely. David has finished his exercise for today. John should try the same.
He played the Berlin, which I sort of expected, but I didn't really know what to do against, because in reality very few people do.
When we are playing an even game against someone of similar strength to us, usually we need to give something in order to obtain the initiative.
Just how shrewd and cunning Alireza can be, even with very little time.
I want to show you a game just to prove that I play these lines that I played against former world number 2 and a bit of a superstar, Gata Kamsky.
Gains that confidence, plays a few good events, stops looking inwards into his own insecurities.
I like the no expectation part, so like that's something that has gotten better because sure, it's like not my full-time job.
It's definitely good for chess in India, and now there is Olympiad also, so there'll be more people following and taking up chess as professional sport.
Yeah.
And it's surprisingly concrete still, no? Like, e takes d4, good move, this d takes e4, the d takes e5.
This line was essential and forced, but also not rocket science to map out.
Hi everyone, it's Sam Shankland. I'm back here with Chessable. I just released a brand new course, the Chess Calculation Workbook, that I hope everyone will check out. But that's also not the only reason I'm here today. I did a couple Endgame masterclasses last month after doing the video for Endgame Strategy, the updated version by Shereshevsky. And they were wildly popular and everyone loved them, so we're going to do a couple more.
Welcome, chat. A big final round of the preliminaries with 3 spots up for grabs. Anything can happen. And once again, just a reminder, Peter, of our players who are safe right now. Let's bring up the standings one more time. We've got a minute to lift off, and this is where we are going into the final round. Magnus Carlsen, Arjun, Vincent, Keymer, Liam Le, and Hans Niemann have all qualified and confirmed their spot. Prague, Jan-Krzysztof, Duda, David Navarra, Christopher Yoo, Levon, Arjun, Anish, Giri, Wojtaszek, Vasyl Ivanchuk. It's the fight between these players for 3 spots. Anything can happen. Big matchups coming up. Peter, what are your predictions? Are we going to see turnarounds in our standings?
Well, anything can happen. I mean, really, I think it's very important for the players to know that they have a chance, yeah, because then they know that they are fighting for something. And we have seen all these things, yeah, all these dramas in the last round. It looked like somebody is safe, and then in the last moment he got knocked out. And people who we saw, like I already mentioned, that Chucky is out after this loss against Hans Niemann. But in fact, still, if he wins against Levon with the black pieces, he has his own chance. Lot to play for, and the round has started. I see that the games have started. Okay, for the moment, I would like to focus on Levon Aronian against Vasyl Ivanchuk, because this is such an El Clasico.
Absolutely agree. And a very important match also for our standings and the 2 players, as you pointed out, an El Clasico match, d4, d5 and bishop f4, a London.
Yeah, very interesting. I mean, usually, okay, Levon probably wants to make sure that he gets a stable position. Yeah, he doesn't want to let Chucky get some dynamic position, but I mean, it would have not been my first guess that this is the right strategy against Chucky, yeah, because okay, he doesn't get any opening problems, and we all know that he is very strong. But maybe Levon is, you know, he's very smart. He thinks that, you know what, Ivanchuk wasn't very active recently, and this London system developed quite a lot in the last couple of years before it was considered to be harmless. And he wants to catch Vasyl here off guard. Yeah, this is already something. Yeah, this is exactly what I mean. That with all these move orders, now, for example, that after bishop d6, Levon got the chance to take d takes c5, and black has lost the tempo, taking back bishop takes d5, a3 on the board. There is something to play with for white. This wasn't the most precise according to modern state of theory.
Peter, you know, I'm still looking at our standings, and the one thing that really stands out to me also is that Magnus is at 31 right now. He's 6 points ahead of Arjun. So actually his #1 spot in the preliminaries is confirmed. And it doesn't matter what happens to Arjun's game. So if Magnus is #1, then that means that in the quarterfinals, he will play with the player who finishes on the #8 spot. And because there is this whole discussion of who Magnus will play, and will it be Hans Niemann, and what will happen then? For that to happen, actually, Hans currently is playing against, who is Hans playing against? Hans is playing against Jan-Krzysztof Duda on the 5th spot. So it's not very likely we'll get that pairing. And for Jan-Krzysztof Duda, he's on 20 points. There are so many ifs and buts at display here. Not sure what's going to happen. The only thing that we know is that these 3 players, Praggnanandhaa, Jan-Krzysztof Duda, and David Navarra, are in danger of being knocked out. Levon Aronian, as you were mentioning against Vasyl, needs to win. Who makes it to the quarterfinal bracket? Will we see a Magnus Carlsen or a Hans Niemann and a Hans Niemann matchup? It depends on the Hans versus Duda board. If Hans loses that game, then the dreaded quarterfinal bracket might actually happen.
Okay, let's not jinx it. Yeah, I just feel like, yeah, let's take a look. Let's make an opening tour, yeah, just to see that what's in store for us. For example, Hans Niemann, yeah, he opted for an anti-knight off strategy with bishop b5 check, knight d7. We know that for Duda, of course, win would be important. So he wants to keep his chances. Knight c3, g6, a5, bishop g7, castles a6, bishop e2, castles d3, knight b8.
Hans Niemann looks a little different right now. There we have him.
Yes, yeah, this is normal. And now white pushes e4, e5, trying to isolate the c5 pawn, yeah, because, for example, without the break on e5, if black gets the knight to c6, one can say that the pawn on a5 will be a big vulnerability. It's a real weakness. On the other hand, after e5, if white is able to transform this construction, then we will be talking about a monster pawn on a5, which guarantees white access to the c4 square, forever access. And this would be horrible for black. So black by no means will take on take on e5. He needs to move the knight. Where? That's the big question. Where do you move it?
Not so easy because, okay, so d takes e5.
What? And he takes d5.
You just mentioned that this is what you don't do because now the c5 pawn is weak. The knight from e5 can jump to c4. The b6 square, bishop e3 targeting that c5 pawn. Strange decision by Jan-Krzysztof Duda.
Yeah, he follows it up with bishop e6. So basically he wants to eye the c4 square. So now playing knight c4 is not that attractive for white. But why would I move the knight so easily? Yeah, it's a wonderful knight on e5. All kinds of bishop f3 ideas are in the position. And who said that we have to move that knight? We will move it when it hurts the most.
Yeah, and bishop e3 developing, attacking the c5 pawn, bishop f3, attacking on the board, attacking the b7 pawn. Strange decision by Duda. And Peter, as you mentioned, we saw the eval bar agrees with you, saying that after d takes e5, Hans gets an opening advantage. All right, we will come back to this. Let's continue to some of the boards where once again the players are fighting for those spots. And let's get an update on Anish Giri. He has many fans, and of course, they want to see him in the quarterfinals.
Exactly, and we see the same narrative that after knight f3, d6, bishop b5 check, he also goes knight d7. So all the players who want to fight or need to fight, they have to use this system because you just don't want to allow some trades. And he, I think, got a position that he is very happy with because compared to the game Hans Niemann against Jan-Krzysztof Duda, this is exactly the position that Black is hoping for. White was not able to get the pawn to a5. Black was in time to set up this a6, b6 structure. The bishop on d3 is slightly awkward. Yeah, White would love to play d4, but the bishop stands on the way. So bishop moves. And now it's Anish to decide that the typical idea is, for example, knight e5 in such positions. Yeah, that you offer the trade of knights. If white takes on e5, then you take d takes e5 and say, thank you very much. I have a nice structure. And if you don't take, yeah, if you insist on playing d4, then, for example, after knight takes f3 check, you have to damage your pawn structure with g takes f3. It's also not something that you are so happy with. But it's a big question for Anish because, for example, like classically speaking, yeah, like when I was a child and people told me this idea of knight e5, it was like a big mistake to take it. Now in modern chess, quite often, computer insists that this position is not so bad for white. In fact, sometimes plays for advantage, but I think that usually it's when black's bishop is on g7. Yeah, when the bishop is blocked and white has a clear play of going rook b1 and b4. Now we see that all these kind of ideas are not possible because the bishop on e7 is wonderful. And also white has already committed a4, so playing this rook b1, a3, b4 idea makes absolutely, I mean, it's impossible, but it would anyway not make much sense against the bishop on e7.
All right, and instead he went for short castle, not knight e5. And I was wondering that doesn't this give white the opportunity to play d4, which wouldn't be possible once the trade of knight e5, d5 would have happened as we were looking at it. But Anish decides not to play d4 and instead plays the quieter h3. But once again, black can go with your idea of knight e5 now.
Yeah, I'm actually puzzled. Yeah, that Anish gave the chance to Arjun that okay, after castles, please go d4, and the answer from Arjun was almost instantly that no, thank you very much. I'm still playing. And finally, knight e5. Okay, let's see how white will react after knight e5. I'm very curious.
All right, Peter. Well, he's about to make a move. He goes d3, so he doesn't
just d3. No, okay, but this is harmless. This is just nothing. I mean, black will go knight f7, bishop f6. I mean, the black is just so happy. I mean, I feel like maybe Arjun, by already qualifying his spot, he lost a little bit of his sharpness, or he doesn't want to reveal his real openings. Yeah, he keeps them for the knockout stages. In any case, I feel we are seeing now a completely different Arjun in the last two games.
Very possible, very, very possible. And knowing that he's already made it to the quarterfinals could have had that effect. Peter, this is a slow game. We'll come back to it. But one which is already hot with action is Praggnanandhaa against Ivan Saric. Now, Ivan has no chances of making it to the quarters, but a very important game for Prague to make sure a draw might be enough, but if he wins, then it is guaranteed. And look at the position. It's out of a King's Indian, and G4 pawn has been picked up. To make sense of it, should we take it from the start?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think I don't know if Black Sacrifice blundered what it was. In any way, it was this very famous, I think, Marder Plata variation of the King's Indian, the very old main line. Yeah, when White plays knight e1 and allows Black to play f5, f3. Black pushed the pawn to f4 before White could put the bishop on e3. I mean, usually it was so scary because we have all seen all these kind of checkmates that Black was producing in this type of positions, yeah, by just pushing everything, and finally with some g3, bishop takes h3 check. I mean, bishop takes h3 sacrifice, checkmate to follow. Nobody really dared to play like this from the white side, but if Pragg does it, it means that he definitely has studied the position with modern engines and believes that there is nothing to be afraid of. Because look at this, in such a decisive game, letting all this happen, I mean, and f take g4, okay.
I would be petrified of allowing Black to just advance with all the pawns towards the king. It looks extremely scary, but you're completely right that Pragg, looking at his clock situation, he seems to be knowing what he's doing. But Ivan's not backing down. And you mentioned, is it a pawn sacrifice? Well, first he played a6, deflected that b7 pawn, after c, which can be picked up at any time now on a6, goes c6, moves that queen away, and g4 pawn falls. Queen g6, attacking that knight. Lines have been opened up on the king side. e4 pawn is attacked currently. Knight f6 might be the way for Black to for White to go. But Peter, once if we imagine knight takes f6, bishop takes f6, slowly Black can build an attack on the king side, move that king, bring the rook into play. Or do you think that this is better for White?
Should be better for White. I mean, basically eliminating the G pawn, I think is a very big achievement for White. Yeah, because now you will get access to the f3 square. I mean, first of all, how do you take? Do you take with the bishop or with the rook?
Good question. My first feeling was bishop.
Okay, let's take with the bishop. And okay, the big question is also Black's structure is already compromised on the queen side. Okay, you need to probably move the queen and then somehow get this knight to h4, get rook f7, rook g7, or rook h7. Okay, I don't have so much experience with King's Indian positions. I do feel that objectively it should be fine for White. On the other hand, give couple of moves to Black and it might be very tricky.
I want to go rook f7, rook g7, but I see the eval bar. It says what you're saying, Peter, that this position is better for White. As you're pointing out, rook f7 not that easy with bishop h5. By the way, Pragg decides to keep more pieces on the board, so not knight f6 and goes knight f2. I would think that having this extra pawn, knight f6, made a lot of sense.
Yeah, but maybe also his move is very smart. Yeah, because actually Black is a little bit cramped. Yeah, that he has too many pieces, but where do you place them? And the knight on f2 is a wonderful piece. It protects the e4 pawn, also guards some very important vital squares on the king side. And by the speed how quickly Pragg has played all this, it seems to me that he very much was prepared for this very sharp King's Indian. Of course, now we are not talking anymore about preparation because nobody will analyze the position where White has already gotten a stable advantage, yeah, and here you know that you are better. And Ivan immediately, at least if my queen side is damaged, let me activate the rook. Yeah, it's very clever. I mean, also asking White, please make up your mind. Do you protect the b4 pawn, or how do you protect it? And probably you shouldn't be allowing Black's rook entering the game.
All right, lots of complexities as King's Indian defense is known for. This is going to be a big, intense battle. Peter, let's take a look on another board, which again is very important, is Liam versus Christopher Yoo. It's really a big game for Christopher. If he wins this, he has, I think he makes it to the quarterfinals, but he might need a result to go his way. We'll get a confirmation from Tad that which player is guaranteed out of the ones who are on these 18 points to make it if they win. So once we know that, we'll let you know, chat. But Peter, big game for Christopher here. And how is it going with the Black pieces?
Well, I mean, it seems to me like Liam is playing a very professional game. I mean, from the white side, he just wants to make sure that black will not have any dynamics. I mean, his main target wasn't really getting any advantage, just to be as solid as possible. And slowly, I mean, yeah, because this was so-called the Moscow variation with takes, E3, G6, and the old classical C takes D5, E D5, B4 was always considered to be quite harmless. But harmless is actually quite a nice line if you know that your opponent is playing for the win, because white is super safe here. You might not have any advantage if black plays very precisely, but since black wants to play for a win, automatically he will play something which will probably play into white's hand. B5, C5, rook C1, queen D6 takes, castles. Yeah, important to notice that, yeah, this knight is not really hanging because white will get the piece back due to the pin. So black plays knight D7, queen B3, knight B6. It's very typical that the knight belongs to B6 and then you get bishop E6, and one could argue that black gets a better position. But here the problem is that black's pawn is not yet on A5. With the pawn on A5, the knight would be a forever beauty. I mean, no one can touch it, and the knight is ready to jump, protects the D5 pawn. Without the pawn, however, there is this A4, A5 idea, which we have seen in the game immediately used by Liam. Bishop E6, knight D4, queen D6 on the board, and I believe that white got some advantage, and knowing that Christopher needs to win, it won't be an easy way to create any chances for him.
This is what really complicates things, right? That you can play this harmless line and you're sort of playing your opponent's tournament situation more than anything. And with black, it's always tricky to try to make chances out of the opening. We'll see how this goes. But Peter, let's straight away head to Hans's game. Jan-Krzysztof Duda, what is he doing? When I got this game in front of me, he had just played the move G5. We have to back up because the last few moves by black are just so difficult to understand. What's going on in Duda's head in this very crucial round where he needs to win to make it to the quarterfinals? It looks like he's just pushing his luck too much right now.
Yeah, well, I mean, somehow this whole D takes E5 operation, yeah, let's just get back there, because I think this is where all started to go wrong for him. Yeah, after D takes E5, you put so much pressure on yourself because you know that strategically actually you are in trouble, and then you feel that all the next moves are actually kind of obligatory in order to compensate for the damaged pawn structure, like knight D5, rook E1 takes. Look at this, B7 pawn is weak, pawn on C5 is isolated, white has this lovely knight on E5, bishop on F3, rook E1, some bishop F4 coming in, and black goes knight C6. Okay, it's a great move, it's a nice move. Hans takes with the bishop. Okay, very interesting. So takes, bishop F4, queen C8, C4. He just wants to fix the weaknesses. He has given up the two bishops, and now Duda feels obliged to go G5 and push these pieces back. Yeah, bishop D2, F6, knight F3, G4, knight H4. So after all, you know, after seeing what happened, it's kind of logical what Duda is doing. The only problem is I'm not sure if it's good.
I mean, one question that comes to my mind directly is that aren't you losing the C5 pawn after bishop E3?
Yes, probably, but since the pawn on C5 is anyway such a terrible pawn, I'm not sure if he's really worried of losing that pawn. He's worried of losing the game, I guess, but what he wants is something like bishop F7 and then start pushing E5, F5, sacrifice the pawn and then claim that the knight on H4 is slightly misplaced, which might not be the case, because actually also after this bishop F7, E5, F5, the knight on H4 will be quite nicely placed. But yeah, wow. He follows it. Yeah, he follows it in the footsteps. Yeah, bishop F7, and then he wants to move those pawns.
All right. So and what is our eval bar saying here? That actually that Hans is clearly better in this position as the pawn structure that you're pointing out. E5, F5, but practically Duda still keeps chances. Peter, meanwhile, the Prague game has blown up, and I see, well, at least according to our eval bar, completely winning for Prague. And rook takes B4 has been played queen g3 on the board, offering a queen trade. Why is this so winning? Is it just because of the extra pawns and a7 hanging? Yeah, this looks busted for black.
Yeah, the point is that after rook b8, Prague has found a very nice way of dealing with the b4 pawn. There is no reason to protect it because we can take it. We can take on a6, forcing also the trade of the light square bishops, which is famous that it will always favor white in this kind of structures when black has placed all his pawns on the dark squares. And his bishop on g7 is basically dead. So Salic is trying to create some counterplay with f3. But Prague just takes, it takes rook b4, queen g3. And okay, after trade of queens, Prague knows that there is no way he's gonna get checkmated. The weaknesses still remain. White is pawn up. And yeah, rook c4 played, yeah, trying to do something, but I don't really see what it does. White can just protect it with bishop d2.
Well, you can't move the knight because e4 is hanging and it might complicate things, though even that looks bad. But bishop d2 just looks simple and strong. And after rook d4?
Yeah, after rook d4, okay, then we continue. Probably I continue chasing this rook. And then rook c4, and okay, now I can already protect it with the rook.
And everything's defended, and all of black's pawns are going to fall. Rook a7, rook c7 coming in, knight b5 might jump in.
Exactly.
This looks like big trouble for black, no?
Yeah, looks like big trouble. Absolutely big trouble. And also it looks to me like Chucky is under a lot of trouble against Levon. Okay, here we see that Prague is in total control against Ivan. And Levon is a pawn up, but maybe thanks to the activity, and we see the computer says that black should be able to make a draw. On the other hand, draw is not a good result for any of these players. Yeah, I'm guessing that Vasil will be knocked out with a draw for sure. And also knowing that the situation is so messy, a draw shouldn't be enough for Lev as well.
No, Lev is on 18 points. He definitely, for a chance, he has to play for a win. But this position, I can't imagine that happening.
Yeah, well, I mean, okay, pawn up, and it's not easy to immediately force a draw from the black side. Yeah, we know that, of course, if white, I mean, if black will be able to liquidate into some 4 versus 3 rook endgame, then I'm assuming Chucky will hold that for sure. But for the moment, still, there is some tension in the position.
But Peter, how are you going to avoid the 3 versus 4 ending? Isn't black just going for rook a4 and targeting the a3 pawn next?
Yes, that was my worry. Yeah, that was my worry. Yeah. Okay, but first of all, it's white to move. Yeah, so white will probably make the move king f2. Yeah, would be kind of logical.
And okay, let's start with the idea. Let's go for rook a4 immediately.
Yeah, rook a4. Then let me play g4.
But you said 4 versus 3 is a draw, and now you're just
no. I mean, I'm trying not to take on d4. Yeah, I'm trying to push my pawns. Yeah, after rook takes a3.
I'll take it.
But of course, I mean, you will have some timely knight c5 as well. Very hard because g4 has weakened my structures, and this f5 push does not seem to lead anywhere. I don't know. My pawns are too loose. I don't think that there will be any mating net. Okay, Chucky is probably on the right track to hold it, which is very bad news for both players.
Right, that's the sad part. That a draw actually means that both of them are out of the quarterfinals.
Yes, and let's take a look then about David. Yeah, because David plays against Boris, but it seems to me like Boris is in total control, and it's more about David holding with white than getting any chances.
Wait, but why is this so bad for black? I mean, white has put the knight on d6. If you trade and pick up the pawn, b7 is hanging. Knight d4 is an idea that you have. Is that the
No, just take. No, I mean, I meant that black is perfectly fine. So, but David is the one playing the white pieces who needs to win, yeah, to get chances to qualify. I mean, Boris is just playing his game, yeah, he's fighting for his honor. And I don't really see the chances how Navala can create. I mean, he needs to survive this and pray.
Yeah, and if you go queen d6, rook b7 should be fine for black, yeah?
Yeah, should be, because it's just winning back the pawn, yeah? I mean...
On the board, by the way, we're probably going to see this.
Yeah, rook b7, and okay, you just should not blunder bishop c6, queen takes f7, checkmate.
All right,
Everything else. So something like just takes and rook b8, getting the b file is it's on the board. And white will play probably the move queen a7.
Queen a7, then you just make a luft for your pawn and for your king, and then you go rook b2. No, maybe a move like h6 simply.
Yeah, but d4 is a trap. Yeah, this is what I wanted to highlight actually. That's why David goes with the queen to a7 to have this d4 idea.
Ah, this is so nice. And let's just show this. You take c takes d4 and c5, and the queen is overloaded.
Yes.
That's a lovely idea.
Yeah, this is the point. So thanks to this, actually, David put some prep, because otherwise he would just be worse. Yeah, I mean, if black could play h6 and then make some more moves, yeah, put the bishop on e8, stabilize, maybe even change the queens. But for the moment, the bishop is hanging, so you can't play the desired queen b6 due to queen takes d7. And there is this d3, d4 idea in the air.
Interesting. Queen on a7, creating this d4 threat. All right, we will come back to this. Let's get an update on the Hans Duda board. What is happening there? It's an opposite color bishop, and white has an extra pawn and looks like a stronger bishop, and black's king is weak. And we know in opposite color bishop, whenever the king is weak, that counts for a lot. Rook b7 is coming in. This looks like bad news for black.
Yeah, looks very bad. Okay, the good news is that still the king can kind of hide well on g6. The only vulnerable spot, however, is on h2 for white. And with all this open construction, yeah, I just don't see it happening. That, yeah, queen e7, a very sad move, acknowledging that the position is completely busted.
He's not going to trade. I don't even see him going for the end game in this position. I mean, maybe you can trade, but why trade when your opponent's king is weak and it's opposite color bishop? But where do you come back? Queen e3 and just keep the queens on the board? Rook c6 still a threat? Or Peter, do you think he's going to go for the end game?
Well, I think he's already pawn up and he can just trade and be 2 pawns up. It's also kind of attractive, but your point is also very valid. Why to trade the queens if you don't need to?
I like queen f2 a lot more because bishop on f5 was attacked, and now both bishop f5, c6, bishop d7 is not a happy move at all. Queen d7 played. He can play rook f1 now, double up on the f file, attack the bishop, forcing the move king g6.
Yeah, well, okay, it's basically clear that Duda is in a lot of trouble. Unless some miracle happens, I think we can move on, because Anish has a chance. And we know that for Anish, it's so important, so crucial to win this game. And it seems like he got a very big chance.
I mean, Arjun's position looks just very depressing, no?
I mean, his opening handling was a total catastrophe. That's why I said that this is not the Arjun, because he always had a very clear vision what he was aiming for in all his games. And he, I think, didn't know how to approach these games where it does not really matter. Yeah, he wants to, I'm pretty sure he wants to keep his ideas for the knockout stage already.
All right, bishop. I was just going to say bishop c5 played, rook e8 is going to happen, but Anish says none of that. Captures on f4 first, and I love it. Bishop f8, he's going to take on g3, and white runs out of moves with bishop e5 coming in.
Yeah, basically you lose the queen. Yeah, just I mean, really incredible, like a checkers idea. Know that queen g3, then bishop e5, king g3, bishop h4.
Wow, king g3, bishop h4 is just over on the spot.
Yeah, so you can't take, and if you can't take, then okay, ef4 was a very nice intermezzo, and you get all. I mean, white can't take with the queen because of rook takes b2 check. So
yes.
Then if you have to destroy your pawn structure with gf4, then Anish will just play bishop d4 probably.
And that's a stunning position, right? Let's just show bishop d4. You'll have to actually trade it off. And maybe you can even go queen d4, Peter, with this b2 hanging. It's an option.
Yes, it's also an option. Yeah, exactly.
And knight d4 also looks very, very strong in that position. Just keeping all the trumps
on the board.
It's on the board.
On the board. So basically Anish got a great chance. It's all in his, I mean, we don't know exactly if he wins. Is that guaranteed for him, or it depends? I guess it depends on also other results.
Absolutely. It depends. Everyone's situation depends on each other, what happens on the other boards. So when we have a clearer update, we'll of course bring it up. But
yeah,
right
basically
now,
what it means that whoever wins, he's praying that please let the other games finish in draw, yeah, because the 3 points is so much more than just the one.
yeah, exactly. Which is also what has incentivized all these players to really fight for the win, and has taken up the fighting index of the tournament higher. We've had more decisive chess simply because of this scoring system. It puts so much weightage on a win.
Exactly. Yeah, and here we are seeing Christopher is trying, yeah, because Liam has a very stable position, but still Christopher tries to create some unbalances. The only problem now that he faces a strategical question that do you play d5, d4, which kind of seemingly cements the bishop on e3, and it looks like this bishop is very strong, but this pawn structure versus this pawn structure with opposite colored bishops is very dangerous. White will push e4, e5, and gonna push f4, f5, and black's king gets into a very big trouble actually. So yeah, he doesn't pushes, he goes rook a8, tries to keep dynamics in the position. The knight is about to jump. There is a pin against the queen.
94 could be a threat, so you have to move. And where do you go? Do you go queen b1? Because
well, or you push e5 immediately, yeah.
E5 is an option, but after e5, can black actually go queen d8, start attacking a5, and also ask, or do you want to, yeah, maybe, no, e5, queen
no,
d8,
but then I will already sacrifice something.
But will you? Because knight e4 is a
knight
big
e4 is there, yes, I know, but okay, knight e4 queen, I mean, no, I don't think that he will put the queen back to probably queen e7 will be played.
Or maybe queen, yeah, maybe queen e7 or queen e6 as well looks better.
Yeah, I mean, queen e6 again, it runs into f5. Yeah, I don't want to run into anything. I mean, but he goes queen. Wow, okay.
E5 as well, Peter. E5
okay, but still, I mean, for my old school, you know, I just don't want to let anything happen. But I mean, Christopher is, of course, the young generation. He doesn't fear anything.
He doesn't fear anything. And
okay, but let me play queen b1. Okay, then I just move my queen away and I'm threatening f4, f5.
This is why I wanted queen d8 threatening a5, but it's just such an ugly square that it makes sense to not play it. So queen e6, you go queen b1. I like your move d4 a lot, but I don't know what's happening after f5. Okay, just a moment. How does black fight this? Not easy.
Yeah, maybe just because till the pawn is on d5, all these f5 ideas are not so dangerous. Yeah, because after queen e5, FG, bishop takes g6, you will always have this knight e4, as you mentioned. Yeah, this knight e4 blocking the diagonal and making very good use of the d5 pawn that you can. And Liam goes queen b2. It's of course more intelligent because he somehow protects the e5 pawn and he wants to push f5.
Is d4 still possible, or knight into d4? He goes for it, d4, but knight into d4, what's the tactical refutation?
Well, probably just takes, rook fd8, and feeling wise it. I know, hang on, knight d4, maybe just queen d5. Can we do this?
Knight c2.
Knight c2. Wow, you will survive this, yeah? Okay, knight takes d3, knight takes e3, yeah?
I'm hoping.
Yeah, could be. Yeah, I mean, because this also, let's not forget that eventually you will have knight g4, knight f6 as well.
D4 on the board, by the way, but I'm thinking about your he's gone bishop b1 because knight d4, bishop d4, queen d4, rook d8 was perhaps quite scary. He's played the move bishop b1, and now d4 is under fire. Is queen b3 an idea here?
Wow, queen b3 is an idea. I mean, basically, I feel like the last couple of moves were heavily in black's favor. I mean, it seems like Christopher is creating chances for himself, which he so much needs.
And that is informing us the computer approves queen b3 is an idea to defend d4 after queen takes b3, knight takes b3, you attack a5, you defend your d4 pawn.
Yeah, wow, and also some knight d2 is a threat.
Correct.
Yeah, and suddenly the pawns are loose. Yeah, just a couple of moves ago, I was very harsh with black's position that, okay, e5, f5, and then maybe some mating threats. Well, none of it. White has lost the grip of the light squares, and with queen b3, if you can trade the queens, that would be great news.
Peter, I have some more great news. I am being informed that Vincent has a better position against Magnus.
Wow, but before we go there, apparently they say that, Tania says that Chucky, with the black pieces being pawned down, he created chances for himself.
What?
What on earth is going on here?
What? Wait, how did this even happen? How did we get to this position?
He somehow, Levon wanted to avoid probably all the drawish continuations, and then suddenly the pawn. Wow, okay, so he gave up the, but hang on, now it's, if nothing happens, then it's a draw, so it should be like a very special, wow, okay, he needs to find Queen C2 check, King F3, Queen C1, which wins the piece.
No, Queen B1, I think is
Queen B1, yes.
Because you
Queen
need to
B1.
keep the pressure on the rook as well.
Yes, no, Queen B1, yes, of course, yeah, and suddenly everything is overloaded.
And the point is, Peter, after knight e3, there's queen h1 check, knight g2, queen f1. Amazing stuff.
Wow, but hang on. So really after queen b1, knight d2, I cannot cement, yeah? Then queen d3 check.
Queen d3 is over, rook e3, queen d2 falls.
Wow, okay. So Chucky basically has to find this queen c2 check, queen b1, and he might win the game.
And with that, might qualify for the quarterfinals. But I think for Vasil, he needs a lot of results to go his way.
Yeah, exactly. For him, it's not good if other guys are winning.
No, because he's on 16 points currently. So he goes on 19 points. Meanwhile, Lev is on 18. So it's still a tough road for Vasil.
Yeah, but okay, if he leapfrogs Levon, then already one guy leapfrogged. Big step.
Yes.
Wow. Okay, so all eyes on Chucky. Can he find queen c2, queen b1? It's not easy at all because nobody tells Chucky. But okay, on the other hand, he feels that this is the momentum because if white stabilize, there is nothing to be done. And we are also getting the message that Duda is fighting back. The position is unclear, but at least he has some chances. Down to 20 seconds, however. So real dramas. We're going to keep an eye on Chucky.
Yeah, let's go over to the Jan-Krzysztof Duda board.
And Chucky did not find. He played queen d5. And okay, then it's we just quickly get to this position. Then it's going to be a draw. Yeah, Chucky did not spot this queen c2, queen b1. Now Levon should be able to somehow get this coordination. And like Chucky did, save the draw against Magnus, probably this will happen. So we move back. Duda.
Why is Duda surviving? Because of the
No, he's not surviving anymore.
Okay,
not
then my
anymore,
question
yeah.
is, why is he not surviving? Because isn't the g2 pawn falling?
Yeah, but it's now white to move, and okay, he will just protect. I don't know, with bishop f2. I'm guessing.
We are being informed. Rook e8 is the move.
Wow, rook e8 just wins on the spot, ignoring the rook take g2 idea.
Well, rook g2, king f1 probably wins on the spot, right? Because bishop f3, some rook e5 should be checkmate somewhere.
Yeah, no, this is, and then rook e5 is coming. King h4 and, okay, first of all, where do you put this bishop?
Bishop f3 is the only move, no, Peter?
Yeah, bishop f3 is the only move. Rook e5
Maybe
check.
you start with bishop f2. Do you start with bishop f2, take that square away, and then go rook e5? Could that
and rook e8 played. Rook e8 on the board.
Wow. Hans Niemann finds rook e8. What a guy.
And okay, now it's very bad news for Duda.
And 35 seconds on the clock. Rook into g2. You can't take bishop g2. Peter, let's just see if he's actually getting mated in that line. Rook g2, king f. It's on the board. King f1. Bishop f3 has to be played. I was thinking about bishop f2, but there you have king g5. He goes rook e5, king h4, bishop f2. There's still king h3, right?
Yeah, but king h3, then some rook ff5, settling rook h5 checkmate.
And that looks busted completely.
Or rook e6 with similar ideas. I don't know which one is better. Yeah, just to threaten with a checkmate.
That's it. Rook f5 found on the board, and he probably, I don't even see, g3 runs into rook takes f3 or bishop g3. Bishop g3 is simpler, yeah?
Yeah, look at the body language. It tells it all. Hans knows that's it, and Duda also knows that's it. Yeah, just rook h5 checkmate is a threat. Okay, g3 on the board.
Again, do you take bishop g3? Do you take hg3? Do you take rook f3? Everything is so tempting, but rook f3 maybe not so much.
No, I mean, also rook f3 should be winning. I mean, even that rook endgame with this terrible king and the weaknesses looks winning for white, but probably white has something better already.
And probably your move rook e6 was stronger, you know, Peter.
I mean, for this reason, I was thinking that, yeah, maybe rook is, but I mean, it doesn't really matter. I just think that this rook f3 is a completely winning position as well.
Rook f3, yeah, because after bishop takes g3, which is really tempting right now, black still has bishop g4. Although this has to be lost, like you go rook g5. I don't know.
Yeah, probably it's lost, but yeah, the game continues in any case. But yeah, Hans goes rook takes f3 and Duda gambles with king h2. Wow. He doesn't take on f2 because, okay, he knows that that rook endgame is just hopelessly lost. He takes on h2, but what can he hope for?
All right. So what else have we got, which is very important right now? Praggnanandhaa against...
Yeah, Prague against Saric. Okay, Prague has everything under control, right?
It really looks like it, no? With this c7, once the c7 pawn falls, it looks like the position will just collapse.
Yeah, it's 2 pawns up and the pawn on c7, unless there are some mating tricks, which I'm not seeing because white seems to have everything under control. But hang on, just a very quick update on the Vincent. We know that it's not important for the tournament situation, but I was just wondering that is Magnus's king able to escape or not? Yeah, because it's a razor sharp position. And Vincent down to 18 seconds, so it's kind of dramatic. But the point is that there will be perpetual check. Yeah, so king h3, rook h1, king g4, queen h2, and Magnus will just seal the draw with rook g7, king g7, queen e7 check, and perpetual.
Can we place the queen somewhere else where there might not be a perpetual, or queen d2 also you have the same perpetual?
Yes, yeah? I always have, yeah. So basically that's kind of the key motive.
Levon winning against Vasil? What?
Wow, what?
What?
Oh my God. So basically then, I mean, Vasil not only did not find the win, but then he just completely lost his mind. And he resigns. Yeah, no checks and knight this. I mean, queen d7 check is met by knight d6 check and the pawn queens. Oh my God! So Levon qualifies. Probably.
Well, he might be. He still needs the results to go his way. We'll get a confirmation on his qualification. We'll also see if we can try and get his interview from Oslo. But right now we can see both players on the on our screen. Levon probably waiting to see if he has qualified. And Vasil, of course, the disappointment. He had such a dream run the first 2 days, but Peter, it also comes down to stamina. It's an exhausting format. And I think for this older generation, that also becomes a challenge.
Yes, definitely. I mean, Chucky showed that he can just play against anyone at any given day. But finally, it turned out that, yeah, 15 games in 4 days, this was too much of a challenge. He ran out of steam there, definitely. I mean, he was so energetic on the first day, and basically already yesterday he was kind of suffering. Yeah, but he had a golden opportunity. If he would have given this queen c2 check, king f3, queen b1, he would have found this. Then we will be talking that, wow, Chucky is on fire. Yeah, it's always very tricky in these events. But let's move on. Christopher Yoo is winning against Liam. This means that Christopher is also fighting for his life. Wow.
I was just looking at the camera and it just felt like you could see the two very different emotions that chess evokes in players after a difficult game. You know, Levon has had a tough tournament, eventually wins and has chances of qualification. And we saw him with a smile because it's been a tough ride for him. Meanwhile, Vasil, you could really see the heartbreak on him. And I don't think it's about the qualification. I think it's about the game because he must have felt he's so close to winning that one.
Yeah, well, I mean, both. By the way, also an update that David Navala drew with Boris Gelfand, so he can't qualify. That already is clear. And Anish beat Erigaishi, and this means that Anish is also in the run.
Big win for Anish, and quite a disastrous day for Arjun this has been, no?
Yeah, but okay, I think he doesn't really care, yeah, because everything that matters will be tomorrow. By the way, Vincent has blundered. He played queen d2, and then Magnus had queen d5 check. He was able to trade the queens. Yeah, Vincent put the queen on d2 and then got queen d5 check. And now he's losing.
We thought after queen, and it was queen h2, which would force a draw with rook g7.
Yes. I mean, I thought that, yeah, just queen h2. I mean, making sure that you are settling checkmate and avoiding any. Okay, now it's, yeah, but it's not important for the tournament standing. So let's move on. What do we have?
We go to the Duda board.
Yeah, I mean, okay, this is hope. I mean, Duda is hoping for some stalemate idea, but it won't work. Yeah, because White's king is running out.
Wait, what happens after rook f7? Rook h2 is checkmate. Sorry.
It's checkmate, yeah, and now king moves, rook f1 check, and we just move the king to e3. Just to highlight that we can't take it because then it's stalemate. Yeah, Hans even puts the king on e2 just to make sure that he just continues running. You just need to run out with the king so that you avoid any kind of stalemate tricks.
Just amazing stuff. All right, so king e2 played, and now rook h2 is a threat. You're up a piece with no stalemate. It looks like this might be game over. And also now you can go king d3 and anyway give up your rook and bishop for the h2 pawn and win the king pawn endgame.
Yeah, wow. I mean, okay, so basically poor Jan-Krzysztof then does not make it. He lost the last two games.
All right, and we're getting some update on our point situation.
Yeah, Prague is basically winning. That's one of the last games to.
If Prague wins, which should be the case, then Lev, Christopher, and Anish are the ones who go through, provided that Christopher wins. And Hans Niemann will beat Jan-Krzysztof Duda. So Christopher's game is super important, Peter. Let's get an update on his board.
Well, he has just won. Yeah, it was already over. Yeah.
Wow. So if Christopher Yoo won, and now Hans Niemann, if he beats Jan-Krzysztof Duda, which looks like it's going to be the case.
Well, it already ended as well. Yeah, Hans won.
Oh, we're getting another update that is not the case. I'm sorry about that, chat. There is so much confusion with so many players fighting for the spots. But now that all the games over?
I mean, Prague is still playing, but yeah, it's clear that there won't be any surprise here. 2 pawns up, the knights are dominating the position. That's clear. And
all right, let's assume that Prague wins this one. Then, Peter, that leaves us with Christopher, Levon, and Anish fighting for the 7th and 8th place. That's how it will be. 2 out of these 3 will qualify.
Yeah, it all will. And okay, now then quietly, because everything has clarified, we can look at Vincent's game against Magnus. It seems like Magnus is winning the rook end game, being 2 pawns down, but simply the king and the pawn on d6 are just way too active. 1 tempo is missing. Wow, what a mischance there by Vincent blundering this queen d5 check, but luckily it does not matter. Imagine that thanks to this blunder he would have not qualified.
And queen h2 was just a forced draw in that position. Getting mated, Magnus would have to go for that perpetual. Queen d2 with the same idea, but Peter, I remember mentioning queen d2 myself. And queen d5 you can miss very easily.
Yeah, because already you think like anyway your opponent has to sacrifice on g7 and will be stalemate. I mean, perpetual check, pardon me. But that's it now. King e7 wins the game for Magnus.
Has Magnus won all his 3 games today?
Yeah, well, but I think not only today. One really has the feeling like he has almost won all his games.
He's won all his games, the ones that he's played.
Yeah.
Unreal stuff. G5. Well, this was a big miss by Vincent, as you're pointing out. Peter, maybe we can just have that position on the board where the evaluation of the game completely changed. That moment from slipping out from a draw to a lost position. Queen h2 would be threatening queen h4, queen h5, and queen h3, not queen h4. And with nothing better to do, Magnus would have to take rook takes g7, king g7, and force a draw with queen e7, queen e8, perpetual. But
yeah, that's what we are basically assuming. And yeah, thanks to this, Magnus wins the last 5 games. In fact, he won his last 5 games, and Prague has also won his game against Sadic. We might be having standings. But we still don't know the tie breaks, right?
And after king d3, if you can just have that position. Wait, is this the final? This is it, Peter. These are our top 8 qualifiers, the players who make it to the knockout stage of the Julius Baer Generation Cup. Magnus Carlsen, Arjun Erigaisi, Hans Niemann, Praggnanandhaa, Vincent Keymer, Liam, Christopher Yoo. Wow. Levon, Arjun are all through. Amazing stuff. And these are our brackets, chat. Take a look at this. We already have a big match with Magnus and Levon facing each other in the quarterfinals. And it is the clash of the prodigies with Vincent taking on Praggnanandhaa. Hans Niemann plays Liam, and the youngest player in the field, 15-year-old Christopher. A big congratulations to him to make it to the knockouts in his first outing of the Champions Chess Tour. He will be up against Arjun Erigaisi.
Yeah, wow.
And let's also take a look. Can we bring up the standings one more time? Peter, some big heavyweights have been knocked out. It is the end of the road for Anish, Giri, Jan-Krzysztof, Duda. Both players, we've seen them in the quarterfinals and more and beyond so many times. This just goes on to show how difficult these events are. And with this young blood in the mix, just nothing is a guarantee. A heartbreaking ending to the tournament for Vasil Ivanchuk.
Yes, for Vasil and also for Jan-Krzysztof Duda, yeah, because for Anish not qualifying, I mean, he had to fight till the very last moment, yeah, and it wasn't clear, but Duda lost the last 2 games, yeah, so basically it will definitely hurt him. And also in the overall standing, he was doing very well. He was on 2nd position behind Magnus, so yeah, that's a big blow for him. And big congratulations for Christopher Yoo, of course. I mean, sensational result in his very first Meltwater Champion Chess Tour to qualify. And he has shown that with little time on the clock, he was just very effective. And not only that, I mean, definitely, if I would be claiming that he qualified because he handled the last seconds well, it wouldn't do justice to him. He also played fantastic chess and controlled the clock as well. So just a total package.
Just amazing stuff. This has been a tremendous preliminary, so much drama, so much action, fighting chess, intense chess, a lot of switch arounds in the entire event. And Peter, a dominating performance by Magnus. Let's have the standings up one more time because it just, yeah. And there we see with 9 points ahead of Arjun Erigaisi, Magnus finishes at the top of the table, far ahead of the field. And we are talking this after not playing one game, after throwing a game. Just a brilliant performance by Magnus. Arjun, Hans, Prague, Vincent, Liam, Christopher, Levon continue their journey. Let's have our matchups on the screen now for the quarterfinal brackets. Also, this is really interesting because we have Magnus and Levon, and in some ways, Levon is older than Magnus, but very often considered colleagues. And then we have Vincent and Prague, a fight between the same generation again.
Yeah, we see a lot of prestige duels, right? Because if, for example, Vincent would be playing against Lev and Prague would be playing against Magnus, then okay, it's a clash of generations, but there is not so much pressure on the players. Like this, of course, I'm pretty sure that both Prague and Vincent wants to win their match. We have already seen here in the preliminaries what an incredible fight they had. Yeah, it finally ended with a victory of Prague, but it could have been anybody's game. I think that already shows what we will be in for, what kind of fight we'll be in for.
It's going to be a tremendous fight, and what a bracket in the quarterfinals. We've had so many games and so many big struggles by the players, ups and downs. And to think of it that it's just the first stage of the tournament that's through. The tournament is just getting started for these 8 players. And let's not forget the format of the knockouts is of course completely different. Now the players will play a one-day match consisting of 4 games against each other. 4 rapid games, 15 minutes with a 10-second increment. If the 4 rapid games end in a tie, then they play 2 blitz games. 5 minutes with a 3-second increment. If that ends in a tie as well, then we have an Armageddon. So it's a one-day match. Eventually, we have a winner who qualifies to the semifinals.
Yeah, and now it's the very tricky question. Is Magnus happy? I mean, because he knows very well that you get a completely different Levon Aronian in the knockout stages. And if, for example, in a very big fight...
Christopher Yoo, the youngest player with us, let's hear it from him first.
Clinch your spot. What was that like?
I was definitely very nervous, partially because I knew I had to win, but I also didn't know that even a win would make it, because if Navarra had won his game, I think he would have had better tie breaks than me. So there were a lot of things that were like in the air, and it was very hard to know what to expect, but I just had to focus on my game and trying to play well.
Absolutely, absolutely. And at 15, you are the youngest player to ever make it through to a knockout stage in the Meltwater Champions Chess Tour. What does that mean to you?
I was just happy to get into this tournament. Like, before the tournament, I definitely didn't even expect to get invited, let alone do this well. So I'm just extremely happy. I'm a little bit surprised just by getting into this tournament, and also that I somehow managed to make it to the knockout.
We are so happy for you as well, Christopher. What would you say has been the main reason you have been able to do this against the very top elite in chess?
I kind of feel like I've had nothing to lose, and I've just tried to play with no fear and just try to enjoy the games and get complicated positions. And it's kind of nice to be that guy where nobody really expects anything of you, and you don't have any expectation on yourself either. So you can just play carefree chess.
How cool. And tomorrow, a quarterfinal against Arjun Erigaisi, both of you teenagers. What's your experience with him?
I think my only experience was the game in this tournament, and that was a little bit rough. He seemed very well prepared in the opening, so I definitely need to watch out for his opening preparation.
Yeah.
In general, getting this far is already quite a big success, so I'm not too worried whether or not I get even farther in the event. I'm just gonna try to have some fun.
Yeah. And, well, it's been a great recipe for you so far, just nothing to lose. And you're playing from the very western part of the US, early in the morning. So what is your daily routine in this tournament?
It's kind of lucky that I generally wake up early in the morning anyways, so I actually like to play in the morning rather than later in the day.
Fantastic. And what will you do?
I'm just sticking with my normal routine.
Good plan. And what will you do for the rest of the day now? I guess it's early afternoon for you.
I think I'm gonna play some tennis later.
All right. Nice. Sounds like fun. Well, Christopher, we wish you best of luck in the quarterfinals and huge congratulations on this sensational performance.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us.
Such a lovely interview there, Peter, where Christopher mentioned that it's great to be playing as a guy no one has any expectations of, and you can play freely, and he's so happy that he's made it into the quarterfinals, and he's going to be playing pressure-free against Arjun. A big moment there for 15-year-old Christopher Yoo, who qualifies to the knockout stages in his first outing ever at the Champions Chess Tour.
Yeah, absolutely, and well deserved. He was fighting. He was producing very interesting games, just as he said. Yeah, that he wanted to get complicated positions. I think this is also his style. He was true to his style. He didn't, because one could argue you play against the big boys, then you should try to play solidly or like this. No, he stick to his principles. He tried to play on the ground where he felt most comfortable. And actually, he was driving his opponents crazy, yeah, because he was handling the turn pressures very well. Just a big fighter, and it's very nice to see him qualify.
Couldn't agree more, chat. We've got the big quarterfinals coming up tomorrow. It's been such a ride, this preliminaries. We've enjoyed every moment of it. Thank you so much for joining us on Twitch, on YouTube, on Chess24. Do like the stream, and we're so excited to call the action for the quarterfinals starting tomorrow. Good night.
Bye-bye.
In the preliminaries?
Yeah, it was very good. Score was, I think, taking the position and so on into account. It was on par with some of my best ever rapid round robin events. So wow. that was very good. I feel like the quality of my games perhaps dipped a little bit the last couple today, but overall it was very good.
All right. And you do it even with losing 3 points to Hans Niemann, withdrawing from that game. I think the whole world is wondering, Magnus, what was the reason you withdrew from that game?
Yeah, unfortunately, I cannot particularly speak on that, but people can draw their own conclusion, and they certainly have. And I have to say, I'm very impressed by Niemann's play, and I think his mentor Maxime Dluge must be doing a great job.
Okay. Can you confirm or not confirm that it has to do with suspecting him of cheating?
I will not comment on that.
Okay. It's been a dramatic time for chess, and of course a special 2 weeks for you as well, also after Sinkfield Cup. How are you doing in all of this?
I'm okay, just living my life and trying to do well in the tournament. I mean, people who know me and followed, for instance, the tournament in Zagreb in 2019 know that I can sort of shut things up when I play. So that's.
Mm-hmm. And with a performance rating actually now of 29-39 in the preliminaries, how are you able to stay so focused and just play some of your best chess?
Wow, I'm happy to play chess. That usually makes me happy, and as I said, I have a lot of experience, and generally it makes me adaptable. But the score in the preliminaries is nice, but now I'm facing a very strong opponent already in the quarters, so it doesn't necessarily mean anything at this point.
Uh-huh. And Magnus, you mentioned a name there. I think maybe a trainer of Hans Niemann, that he's doing a good job. Could you say some more about that? Is that because you think he's helping Hans in the games?
No, I will not say anything more about that subject.
Will you at some point make a comment on all the fuss that is going on?
Yeah, I hope to say a little bit more after the tournaments.
Mm-hmm. So I'll ask you very in general, Magnus, because the whole world, the whole chess world, the whole world actually is talking about cheating these days. Is, in general, cheating a problem in chess, do you think?
I think individual people will answer the question pretty, differently depending on their own experiences. I mean, regardless of whether it's a massive problem or not, it's I think fairly easy to cheat, and on general, on a general basis, I think that cheaters in the future have to be, it should not be taken lightly, neither online or over the board.
Do you have sort of something you urge to say to young players playing online who maybe are tempted to cheat to maybe get higher rating or for whatever reason?
Yeah, I understand. It's tempting, but yeah, I wouldn't recommend it.
Is organizers, is FIDE, are they doing enough to avoid cheating and to punish if there is a suspicion of cheating?
It's hard to say, really.
Would you like to see some more action be taken in terms of cheating?
Yeah, as I said, I'll comment. I'll probably say a bit more after the tournament, and whether it's on that particular subject or something else, we'll just have to see.
All right, I'll leave it with that. Finally, Magnus, you played Levon in the quarterfinals, and you've had the chance also to play Gelfand, Ivanchuk here in the preliminaries. How have you enjoyed playing with these legends?
Obviously, the game against Ivanchuk was a great fight. Should have won at some point, but then he defended very well afterwards. Wouldn't quite put Levon in the same category.
He's turning 40 next month, actually.
Yeah, I know. It's surprising that he and Peter Leko, who started a lot earlier, they're actually just 3 years apart. But Levon came into the elite pretty much at the same time as I did, like 1 year earlier. So I consider him to be sort of the same generation as I am, even though he's technically a bit older. But yeah, in general, he's a super tough opponent. It looked like he didn't have the best tournament here. Then he pulled himself together, and in any one match, he's extremely dangerous.
And we actually have 5 teenagers in the knockout stage. Are we seeing the start of a generation shift in chess?
Oh, it's already. It's not at the start. It's already happening, and I feel like it's already kind of well known that guys like Prague, Arjun, Vincent, Keymer, that they are very strong, but now others are coming along as well. So it's certainly exciting to see, and it's motivating for me as well.
Yeah, very cool to hear. Magnus, we really appreciate to hear your thoughts, and best of luck in quarterfinals.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us. Wow, that was the...
And we're back because just hearing that interview, we saw Magnus go live. We haven't heard from him yet. It was a super nice interview then. We got some insights into what's going on. Peter, nice to hear from the world champion. Your thoughts on what he let out?
Well, I mean, it was just very nice to hear him. And he talked about some things. He shed some lights. For me, as actually the most important part was that he's looking forward to his big match against Levon, because there was this moment when I also tried to explain that I think that this match will be an incredible big fight. Then suddenly there was the interview of Christopher Yoo, and I couldn't really finish my sentence, that Levon was threatening, that, you know, guys, I'm very, very shaky in the preliminaries, but when it gets down to the knockout stages, then I'm always playing very well. And now he's paired with Magnus Carlsen, who has just finished an incredible preliminary. I mean, I think this is a record score. I don't think that it was ever matched before. And I'm really looking forward to this big grand battle.
Absolutely. I think it's a really big one. And as Lev mentioned, that in the knockouts, we're hoping to see a much more charged up Lev than we saw in the preliminaries. Also, the fact that he's playing Magnus will be a big one. Peter, I couldn't understand the whole Maxim Dlugi thing. Is that something that you have any idea about what that was about?
No, I also missed it. That's why I even don't really want to comment on it, because without really hearing what was really said, I don't want to get into any speculations. It was just very nice to hear. And Magnus also said that after the tournament, he will be also revealing some more information. I mean, this is great news. I mean, it's, I think, in everybody's interest to get some more knowledge about situations, his thoughts, and then we will have a much better understanding.
We've all been waiting to hear from him, and it was definitely quite a relief to see him on camera, and he seems like he's in good spirits. And I told you, Peter, this is a Magnus. He's on a mission in the preliminaries. We've never seen this kind of a dominating performance by the world champion. But now it's just getting started as the tournament goes in the knockout stages. Chat, we'll be back with the pre-show and a lot of discussion on everything going on. We'll see you tomorrow with more chess.
Yes, goodbye.
Air quality isn't the first thing that comes to mind when you think about chess and esports, but it affects our focus, decision-making, health, sleep, and more. What's in the air you breathe? Find out with Airthings.
How many times have you been stuck in a rut where you're just not improving? Why can't I improve? I'm 1600, 1800, you know, even 2000. I can't get to the next level. What am I doing wrong? This course is aimed at taking you to the next level. I show you one game which has inspired me, which has really helped me in a particular idea. And this is what Baer said in his notes. The move h4 is not to try and checkmate black, it's to try and stop black from playing f5. And I'm going to show you one of my own games where I've used that idea and I've put it into practice. That's why I started playing h4 in multiple positions. I now play bishop e2, and you can see it's very similar strategy to the last game. I want to play h5. Best form of defense is attack, and calculation is key. Force your will on your opponent. Rook to d4. Boom! So get yourself a nice cup of coffee, get yourself a nice comfy seat, lay back and learn.